OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
And it is a free kick to Ireland. And just on the yellow cards, Jamie Finn has 2 yellow cards, so if she was to be booked in this, she would miss the trip to Slovakia. Ball sent in very, very deep, and the chance, and it's a goal for Ireland! They've had their moment, and it's Lei-Utd in her first ever appearance in Dublin for the girls in green. Scores one of the most important goals they have ever scored. The header from 12 yards out, looping over the Finland keeper, and Ireland leads 7 minutes into half-time. What a moment for Lei-Utd. What a moment for the Republic of Ireland.
Nathan and Emma Byrne in commentary last night, 7:30. Welcome along to OTB AM. Very good morning to you. Shane Hannon, how are you getting on?
Good morning, Adrian. How are things?
Kathleen McNamee, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I can't stop smiling after listening to that.
Incredible moment, an incredible result, and like we're all luxuriating. It feels like we're all celebrating. Even the players and the management and coaches on the pitch last night felt like we were all kind of celebrating going to the World Cup. There's obviously a bit of a caveat, a very complicated caveat that we'll get into a bit later on, but just a big, momentous, Kathleen, historic, incredible event in Tallaght last night.
Yeah, it was incredible. I dashed out from the studio to get over there just in time for the match to kick off after hosting the pre-show with Olivia O'Toole and Emma Byrne. And even like at that stage, there was still a great atmosphere outside. There was a big band playing inside the stadium. There was a great atmosphere, lots happening, and it all went downhill for a while after that because it was such a tense game, and I don't think that's what any of us expected. It wasn't what I expected, but somehow made it kind of all the sweeter as well when we did actually manage to pull it off. But I think last night was a sigh of relief for a lot of people in terms of after what happened with Ukraine, what happened with the Euros. I thought last night we were going to fall to all those old demons again, and the fact we didn't, the fact that we actually had the resilience to get that 1-0 win. It was ugly, but we did it, and the Ireland of a couple of years ago wouldn't have done that. So I think especially for players like Denise O'Sullivan and Katie McCabe, you know, last night was their night, and it was a testament to all the hard work they've done. Yeah, the playoff situation is incredibly complicated, but at least we're putting our hat in the ring this time around, and we know we're capable of doing something when we get there.
I was travelling the roads yesterday evening, and was tuned into the show to get the best to build up Kathleen that I could be just fully genned up and ready for action come kick-off time. And I mean, I have to say, I did leave the show thinking, I think we're going to win this 4 or 5-0. There's, we're going to start really positively. We're going to play high up the pitch. Katie, it's a great team news about Katie. She's going to play exactly where we want her. I couldn't have been more positive. And then 2 or 3 minutes in, I was like, oh shit, this is not the script.
I know. I know none of us expected it. I mean, I was chatting to Karen Duggan, and she was up in the studio in RT, and she had said beforehand a 0-0 draw, she'd be happy with it. And I had been teasing her all week, being like, you know, why are you wanting a 0-0 draw? And then by the first 15-20 minutes I was like, no, Karen, okay, 0-0, that's fine, we'll go with that. I'm happy with it. But I think, Finland were a lot stronger than I expected. I think the first half an hour in particular, Ireland were so nervy, and we were falling into our old patterns. Everyone thought with Katie starting higher up the pitch that we were going to play much more attacking football, but especially in midfield, which is an area that I thought Finland would be really weak, they didn't really give us that opportunity at all, and they silenced Katie and Denise quite a lot in that first half. But the second half came along, and clearly Vera had a few words. We definitely came out a lot more attack-minded. And the thing was, in the first half, that was really frustrating. Every time we did get the ball up towards the goal, we actually looked like we could score, whereas Finland didn't look like that as much, I thought. I was sitting right behind the goal for that first half, so kind of had a good bird's-eye view of it all. And I was disappointed that we didn't do better. I thought this was going to be a great opportunity for us to show how far we've come and that we have multiple goal scorers on the team. But I said during the week that it would be the absolute fairy tale story if what we won by was Louise Quinn header, and that was the only goal of the game. And I mean, I wasn't that far off. I did say like a free kick and a header. It's a very typical Irish way to win a game.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it just felt, because again, like all the chat on this preview show that I was listening to, Shane, was like, had me so hyped up about the lack of quality of this Finland goalkeeper. I was like, just pepper the goal. It just felt like we could go for it. But the goal itself, absolute quality, wasn't it? Like, it was the composure, the skill, the awareness, the bravery. I heard Tony Donoghue talking about afterwards, which I thought nailed it in terms of the keeper coming out on top of her.
Yeah, and like the Finnish defence kind of went missing in some ways as well. Lei-Utd kind of even hinted at that in a post-match interview with Nathan as well. Like, but having said that, she had to be in the right place. Like, I was kind of similar to yourself, Nathan. I was kind of listening to all the pre-match build-up and thinking, we're gonna hockey these. I mean, they lost their manager since we beat them last. Clearly, Finland aren't in a good place as a team. But then, you know, I had a unique experience of watching the game on TV, and then about 10 or 15 minutes in, I changed from the TV commentary to Nathan and Emma Byrne's commentary on the radio. Obviously, there's a slight delay, but just the words they were using, like, there was a lack of physicality with that Irish team in the first half. Yeah, creating chances, but I mean, you were just concerned and you were thinking Finland could get them on the bounce here and get a goal. So at that stage, and then Lei-Utd changed the game when she came on. It wasn't just the goal. I mean, she clearly was above and beyond every other player on the pitch, and I think she got man of the match maybe officially as well, but and rightly so probably. But the goal itself, I mean, it's hanging in the air for I don't know how long. It was one of those. I remember the Andy Cole loop over the Spurs keeper to win the Premier League for Man United in 1999. It was one of those where you're thinking, is this going to hit the crossbar? Is this going to drop in the goal? Bit like Robbie Brady's goal against Italy in the Euros. But yeah, what a moment. And then to see the reaction at full time. I think Lily herself in the interview was saying, you know, Vera Pauw had been saying no partying. Obviously we have to focus on Slovakia on Tuesday, but I don't know whether the players listened to that or
we can celebrate, not party. I think it was great. I don't know if she rehearsed that, but it was a good line.
Enjoy it, but don't go overboard. But yeah, Tuesday's a big one now, and obviously trying to secure the seed, and you probably need a degree to understand what happens from here on in terms of the seedings.
I mean, Kathleen will be taking us through all of that in a minute, and I'm fully expecting Kevin Kilbane, Nations League explainer here. We'll get into that in a minute, but first of all, a bit of reaction from Tala last night. Denise Sullivan post-match chatting to Nathan. Take a look.
There were nervy moments as well, particularly in the first half. What was the feeling at half-time? What was the conversation at half-time in the dressing room?
I think we just needed to be more composed. They came out and they kind of changed up their formation a bit. They played a diamond in midfield, and I think we kind of got stuck on what to do in the middle of the park, and we went in and Vera just said stay relaxed, stay composed once we get the ball, and I think in the second half we showed that we were a bit more composed on the ball, and we went at them. I think compared to the first half they came at us, and the crowd was a big thing for us in the second half that kept us going.
Kathleen, how come the better teams know how to overrun Ireland in midfield when we have such quality?
I don't know. Like, I think Finland sat up very well last night, and they clearly knew that was an area that they needed to heavily focus on. I think they probably benefited from the fact that on the first time we caught them on the hop, and maybe last night we let them catch us on the hop a little bit. The thing is, when you have those pivotal players like Denise O'Sullivan, is it's so easy to pick her out and just push her around. And I mean, you say she plays in midfield, but like I don't think there was any position she wasn't in a classic Denise O'Sullivan fashion last night. But in the first half, she was so quiet. Like, they had 2 or 3 people around her all the time. Anytime she did get the ball, it was pure scrappy fighting for her life to get it out. And as good as she is, we probably need a bit more support for her in that area. I mean, like, the team did great, but you only have one Denise O'Sullivan, and whenever she gets taken out of things, it's very, very difficult for everyone else to pick up the sort of work rate that she does around the pitch.
She's such quality. Like, she's just clearly above everybody else on the pitch. Who is more important to Ireland, Denise O'Sullivan or Katie McCabe?
Oh, you're not going to do this to me, are you?
It's 7:39 in the morning. I mean, give me a chance to wake up here.
Who is more important to... I don't know. I think...
Like, it felt that, I ask it in the context of Katie having having an off night last night, certainly by her own standards.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And it felt like, even, you know, with Ireland going backwards a bit, Denise O'Sullivan was still that player who was able to put her foot in the ball or able to get stuck in or make that challenge in a way that she was clearly still well able to demonstrate her superiority in a way that Katie just wasn't last night. And I don't want to be using last night to to draw a total veil over Katie's career.
There's going to be an awkward Koi gig pod at some point whoever she says
off the ball, Katie McCabe is done. I don't know, like, even I was watching Katie last night, and I know it wasn't her best game, but she was still, there was at one stage where the ball was over in the far corner from her, and Jessu was running towards the Finnish defender that was so high up the pitch at the stage, and she was kind of slightly, she was jogging towards her, and Katie just like bombed over from the other side of the pitch, was right on top of her, won the ball, and like ran up the pitch with it again. And I think that's what she does so well. Like, she is always watching for opportunities. She knows that if she takes herself slightly out of position, she has the ability to get back in it straight away. In terms of which one of them is more important, I actually don't think you can separate them all that much. I think what Katie has done in terms of being a captain at such a young age, the leadership she shows, I think the mentality that we have now compared to what we had 2 or 3 years ago, yes, comes from Vera Pauw, but I think a lot of it comes from her too, because it's very much the mindset she has always had, and now it's distilled into the team a little bit more. With someone like Denise, it's her pure work rate, it's her skill on the ball. I mean, if you were to ask me who I would want to watch in open play more, I would probably say Denise. But if you ask me who would I trust to whip in a glorious free kick, it would be Katie. So they both have their advantages, and I won't be sending either of them off the Irish team anytime soon.
I feel as if you've done an excellent job of responding to that question.
Politician's answer there,
so I think that's as good as we can expect. A bit more reaction from Tala last night. Goal scorer Lily Agg.
Lily, congratulations. Home Ireland debuts don't get much better than that.
Honestly, I don't think I even dreamt this. Absolutely amazing. I'm so happy for this team.
Yeah. Can you talk about the moment as the ball is? Because it seemed to hang in the air for quite a while as it's going in.
It felt like forever. Honestly, I was signaling over to Tom, should I go in or should I hold out as I'm holding mid? And he was like, get yourself in there. And felt like it was up in the air forever, and I think I took a clattering from the keeper. But as soon as I see the ball in the back of the net, like you say, absolute scenes, the girls were all screaming, and yeah, surreal moment.
Yeah, and you sort of, but the goal went in, like, you're definitely looking at it going, right, it's time to kick on now. And I don't know, maybe we didn't, Shane, sort of pepper the goal enough to, really trouble that Finnish keeper.
No, like there could have been more chances. Understandably nervy once you take the 1-goal lead. You're thinking, right, let's just hold on to this. It's hard to push on then, and you get a little bit more defensive. Like McNally coming back into the team, like obviously they scored the goal in Helsinki. Probably more a defensive role than she would have been used to from earlier in the campaign. But to have her back in as well and playing like she did, and then the delivery for the set piece from her as well has to be mentioned, because it was look, you can say what you like about the Finnish defence, and the line was maybe a bit putrid, but the delivery was excellent and searching, and like I was just so happy for Vera Pauw. I hadn't, and I think she said this herself after the match, like I hadn't seen a smile like that in her face or some of those players' faces in a long time, and to just see what it meant to them. I know a lot was said in kind of the first half, especially when things weren't going to plan, about the crowd and the number of empty seats. I know it was still a record attendance, but maybe not the crowd they were expecting, given that it sold out in half an hour. But just to see the young fans holding on at the end and staying on to see the girls off the pitch, amazing scenes. It's a night that Irish women's football will never forget. Like, I know we hark back, and even last week in the build-up, we were harking back to the Euro 2009 game and even the near miss against Slovakia last year, and like, there are big moments, but there are probably more big moments to come. But the fact is, you have to enjoy these games as well. But Slovakia's going to be a big one. Just on Katie McCabe, like, Katie McCabe is going to have a massive game, I think, on Tuesday night, because she seems the type of player when she's doubted or questioned, and no one's doubting or questioning her, but she probably will know that she didn't have her best performance last night. And when she's a wounded animal, I feel like she's the type of player who responds very well. So I'd expect Katie McCabe to have a massive say on Tuesday.
Yeah, such a big game, and there's lots of permutations. We'll get into those in just a couple of moments' time. The tickets that Shane mentions, Kathleen, you were out at the game last night. As you said, you were doing the preview show and then legged it out afterwards, just as the anthems were wrapping up. The ticket situation, I saw a few people, Michael Foley on Twitter was saying that he was trying to get tickets for his kids, had hooked them in previously in the campaign, and then was disappointed that there was no available tickets for sale for the game last night at a certain point. But then looking on TV, there were some large pockets of empty seats, which doesn't look great.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate because I saw a lot of people talking about that on Twitter at the time, and like where the TV gantry is set up, it was facing right towards those pockets. Like every other stand around was full, so it was really unfortunate, just even from a visual sense for anyone watching at home, that was there. It looked like, I don't know, did clubs or teams buy pockets of tickets and then just not turn up, which is really unfortunate because it was such a big night, and like I know so many people were messaging me on the day looking for tickets, or I had a few people message as well to say that they couldn't go and did I have anyone who could take the tickets, and managed to get rid of them all pretty much straight away. So there was that appetite there, and I think this is always the problem with women's football. I mean, we saw it during the Euros as well. Yes, okay, they broke all these attendance records, but because tickets are so cheap, or because they're in stadiums that are maybe a bit more difficult to get to. Not that Tal's even particularly difficult compared to some other stadiums, but there's less of a will to actually go out on the night, and people are missing out. Like, the atmosphere last night was great, and one thing I would say about the crowd, like, I love the fact that there's all these kids there. I mean, the pitch at those matches is entirely different to the pitch at any other match. It's a lot higher and there's a lot of screaming. But I also just would like to see, you know, more people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s going out to these games and not just seeing it as a game for, you know, little boys and little girls. It's so much fun. It's such good crack. You get totally invested in it. I mean, Emma, one of our producers here, me and her could barely speak this morning when we came in because we had been screaming so much last night. And I hope that the FAI and everyone across women's football keeps marketing it, yes, to those kids that want to dream to be the next Katie McCabe, but also to, you know, the average football fan, the person who wants to go and have maybe a couple of pints and then go watch the game and then go have another few pints afterwards. And I think sometimes that element is missing from the crowds in women's football matches. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere last night, and it is a shame about the tickets, and I hope they can maybe sort something out for any future games where that doesn't happen. Even like if it is a club, that at least the club can say to the FAI,
yeah, if there's a season ticket holder hanging on to them, and yeah,
exactly. Yeah. If you say like, oh, I have 30 tickets, I'm not going to turn up tonight, can you resell them, or because it actually is quite easy to transfer tickets on the FAI website.
I also think people would. I think a fiver is too cheap. Like, I understand why they've done it up to this point. They want to get the ground filled and they want to build that atmosphere and you know, put the opposition on the back foot and all that. That makes total sense. I think we're now at a point where this team have enough of an audience. On your point, Kathleen, about the demographic of the audience, that the fans that turn up, I think there's enough of a thirst there now across a broad demographic society, older people basically, like you were talking about 20s, 30s, 40s, who will want to go to these games. I think you can start to charge a bit more, and at that point you're looking at your ticket that's cost you a tenner, let's say, or $12.50, whatever it might be, and you're thinking, well, I'm not just going to leave it sitting here. Whereas the fiver, you're like, meh.
That change, for me, that change in demographic largely comes down to, like as you've said, it comes down to recognition. And Vera Pauw mentioned this, and she mentioned Sky as the sponsor, and she mentioned all the great things they've done in terms of getting, you know, Katie McCabe's face on the side of buses and across the country in different cities and all that sort of stuff. The Euros, I think, helped as well. There's a couple of men of my dad's generation, you know, my dad and a few of his friends, who would never have watched women's football, and then were glued to the Euros recently, and literally were like, this is actually really good, high quality football, and they almost seem surprised. But that generation are slowly becoming accustomed to watching women's football now, and even last night, and it is that name recognition. Seeing Katie McCabe, seeing Megan Connolly, seeing like all of these girls up on buses and you know, across cities, that can only help. You know, if there's name recognition, then that kind of fan group who goes and has the pints before the game are going to be more keen to go to these games. It's not going to just be the kids. So I think that's one step in the right direction. Right,
Kathleen's explainer of how we're going to get to Australia is upcoming, but before that, it's the manager of the hour, Vera Pauw.
Almost every player has a backstory that makes tonight so important, but I just want to touch on two. Megan Campbell, back after so long, and Lei-Utd, who it's taken her a long time to finally get that green jersey. What a way to mark your home debut.
Yeah.
It is a home debut, isn't it? Yeah, and we are so happy. It's not just only an amazing player. It's an amazing personality in the group, and the fact that she scores here the winner, she deserves it so much. Every player deserves it, but she went through so much to be here. She really wanted to play for Ireland. She didn't want to play for England. She wanted to play for Ireland because of her background, her family background, and you could see also that green jersey fits her. There's no other jersey that fits her.
We don't
Apart
know
from her club jersey, of course.
We don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks with playoff draws, and I hope we're standing maybe here in 2 months' time with qualification. Maybe it's in New Zealand in the spring talking about qualification.
We will see. There will be a day that I wake up and that I get to draw and
you understand what's happening next.
And that somebody shows me what's happening next, yeah.
But is that when do you get into that mindset of next and put a pause
now
on
already,
tonight?
Because we celebrate, but we will not party. We have to win on Tuesday. That will be extremely difficult because of, well, you hear the celebrations. If your emotions are going out so extremely, but I don't want to stop that either, but so extremely, then in 3 days' time being ready again, that will be a job. But we will do it. And we started off, I don't know if you've seen it, but all the subs and the ones who played in the second half, so less than 45 minutes, they did a full running program so that tomorrow we train with them, the others do recovery, and that means that we can immediately back into our structure.
All right, still a long way to go, but enjoy the rest of tonight.
Thank you. We will.
Yeah, Vera Pound conversation with Nathan after the game last night, so really important that we get the points obviously on Tuesday night. Kathleen, explain to us why we're
no pressure here.
Kevin Kilbane tried this a couple of years ago at the Nations League, and look, he's a man that's easily confused at the best times anyway, but it's still being used as highlight clips, so no pressure.
No pressure. I'm going to literally stare at my notes to make sure that I get this right. Well, obviously top team in every group for our UEFA draw goes into the World Cup, so that's going to be Sweden from our group. Then the 9 runners up from all the groups will compete in the playoff for the final 2 spots. Now, the playoffs consist of 2 rounds of single-leg ties. So the 2 best qualify automatically out of that, and then the third goes into an inter-confederation playoff, which will involve other countries. And then, so for us to qualify, of the 9 teams, the worst 6 have to play the first leg. At the moment we are in that, but it won't be that hard for us to get into the top 3, I think. During the week, I thought it would be a lot harder, but for that to happen, Norway beat Belgium, England beat Austria, Serbia have to drop points against Portugal or Israel, and we have to beat Slovakia, which none of that is like out of the realm of happening. If that happens, we only have to play the first leg or the second leg tie, which would be great. But if not, then we have to play a tie before that, and the winners of that go through to play in the first leg. And then from that first leg tie, your results and your group stage results are taken, put it into a table. And that's why, like for last night or even for the game against Slovakia, it's really important that we do score and we do like make sure our goal difference is good. And then, if we make it that far, we've qualified.
Big if.
I think I'm still with you. But look at the permutations of the games actually looks, I mean, somewhat likely almost. I mean, our own result might be the biggest. Nathan gave it a stab last night at explaining it, and you can see the various permutations, and Kathleen is outlined at the bottom of the page there. And our own result might be I'm not going to say least likely, but the toughest of those to come off.
Yeah, one I would be slightly worried about is maybe Norway beating Belgium. Serbia dropping points as well. Just Norway were so bad at the Euros, and now they've lost Caroline Graham-Hansen as well. So, yeah, hopefully. The football gods were smiling on us last night, so they're going to smile on us for the rest of the week.
Keep on smiling. We're going to come back this very shortly indeed. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It is 7 minutes to 8. Here's what's coming up on the show for you this morning. Emma Byrne is standing by. Going to get to her in just a couple of moments to celebrate further that history night in Tala, of course. Daniel Harris, similar-ish pattern of a game last night as United beat Leicester by 1-0. So we'll get Daniel Harris's thoughts. He was at the King Power last night. Get his thoughts on that at 8:10 this morning. 8:30, we're going to talk to Martin McNally and David Gough, who are 2 high-profile inter-county referees, about you know what during the week, and we'll get their thoughts on exactly what it is to be a referee in GAA at the minute. So that is coming your way in just a little bit. Jack Cooney just stepped down as the Westmeath football manager, so we'll reflect on What's been an amazing year and an amazing 4 or 5 years for Jack Cooney in charge of Westmeath. That is coming your way at 10 to 9 this morning. We'll have what has been called up to this point Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan at 10 past 9, but it's just Deal this morning because the window's closed, and we'll just wrap up exactly what happened over the last 24 hours, and then David Connolly from the show last night at around 9:30. So lots to come, and lots of comments coming in as well. Do keep them flowing into us, whether it's the football or the GAA or the referees or anything else. Do keep your comments coming into us over the course of the morning. 5 to 8. Emma Byrne, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are we?
We're there. That's. I mean, we're ish there, but as Kathleen just been outlining. But we got what we wanted last night. Just.
Yeah, we did, and it was fantastic. Everybody was absolutely elated, as I was. But I did have to question, what am I so happy about? Because I didn't really understand if we had qualified for the playoff or if we had to qualify again, or what was going on. But yeah, it has sunk in overnight. And it feels very good indeed.
We'll all be rewatching Kathleen's explainer there over and over again just to make sure that we absolutely have it right when we're chatting to our mates in the pub tonight. But that notwithstanding, can you just put it in context for us, Emma? There's probably nobody better we could have on the line to put this in context from the journey that Irish football has been on to get to this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we've been working on for the last 50 years basically. Well, obviously I wasn't playing that long, but me personally, certainly the 21 years we were trying to get to this point, and through hard slog and sweat and tears we didn't get there, which was always going to be a massive regret and disappointment. But these girls did it, and it was just felt absolutely amazing. I'm glad that we didn't do much commentating after that, because I was welling up. I needed a little break. It's just great, and it's great to see a lot of older players there, from the past, and everybody just on a complete high, and you just feel a part of it as well. So it's just fantastic to see that, such a relief as well. I just feel relieved that we can say that we've actually qualified for the playoffs, and if we can go even one step further, obviously that would be just incredible.
I do think that certainly fed into it last night. Is it too much to expect, like the near misses that you talk about, and very recent near misses as well? Is it too much to think that what happened last night is a really pivotal moment in the future of women's football here? That now that belief is there, and obviously there's a lot of work still to be done, but to have gotten over that hurdle, that it can be a pivot moment for Irish women's football.
I mean, every time you improve or you go further in a stage, it's a great, thing to work on, and if they don't get through, I don't even want to say that, but imagine, you're going to be talking about how close we got, and we got to, you need to go a step further. But again, it's another game. We haven't qualified yet. It's not going to change things in women's football. It's not going to be a massive, as you say, pivotal point unless we qualify. Being honest, I don't want to put a dampener on it. Whereas, on the other hand, if we do manage to win those 2 games, hopefully just 2 games, I think, that's going to be a game changer, a massive, massive game changer. And all those people that have been putting money into it and backing and supporting the girls will reap the rewards and want to invest even more. And I think that's what we need. That's what we need here in Ireland in women's football.
I was saying to the guys earlier that I was watching the preview show last night before the game, and I was fully convinced, having listened to yourself and Olivia, that we're going to win this game 5 or 6-0. And then suddenly, 2 minutes into the game, I was like, Emma, you've really led me down the garden path here. What is it? What is there? Is there a deeper problem there? That, I mean, it's. We'll celebrate what happened last night, and that's right, and luxuriate in it, but also that thing of it wasn't just 2 or 3 minutes. It took until 43 minutes, I think, of the game where we sort of created our first clear-cut chance. Is there something in our mentality that needs addressing there in terms of our ability to be the favourites for a game like that?
I don't even think it was the mentality. Like, just looking at the game, it's really hard for me to keep my emotion out of it, by the way. So when I'm commentating, it's like a personal thing for me, so I get a bit frustrated. We just didn't play, which was really frustrating for me, because we are a better team than Finland. Finland were one of the poorer teams in the Euros. So I wanted Ireland to go out and show that we can compete against you know, the Spains. We've shown we can compete against Sweden, but, you know, we deserve to be in the finals. And it was disappointing for me that we didn't play from the beginning, because we could have dictated that game and we could have won it very, very comfortably. You saw how dodgy they were at the back. You saw how dodgy the keeper was. You know, that was a game for us to win at least 2-0 and be comfortable. And that's all I wanted. I wanted the girls to come off the pitch and feel like they're confident to play and they're able to compete at that level. And instead we were talking about, you know, just scraping through. The second half was a different game, to be fair, but the first half for me was even from, you know, right from the keeper kicking long, and I'm like, nobody does that anymore. That kind of play doesn't exist. And you didn't see any team doing it in the Euros. Even Northern Ireland, who got a fair old thrashing, they were still trying to play. And I know we were looking for a result, and you just want to get to that next stage, and whatever, however you get there, it doesn't matter. But we do need to start putting the ball in the ground and playing. I think the reason Denise O'Sullivan and Rusha Littlejohn were in there as our midfielders is because they're ballers. And if you play those two in midfield, you have to try and play through the midfield, because otherwise it's pointless having them in there. You just bypass the midfield, which is what we were doing. And it wasn't working. So if we're going to get to the final, this has to change a little bit. And you have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. And you have to be able to execute those plans. And for me, I'm hoping plan A will be try to play. If that doesn't work, then maybe play the longer balls until you can go back to try and playing through the midfield. And, you know, the girls know that. The girls feel that they want to play football as well. They want to play through the midfield. They want the ball to their feet. It just means players get lost, you know, in that kind of system and the way we play. Like Jessica Zhu, for example, she's a very good player. She was completely lost in that first half. She wasn't sure if she should drop back into midfield because midfield were struggling. But she's supposed to be playing high in a 3. So just, you know, a little bit more, you know, the jobs, they know exactly what they're doing, and try to put the ball in the ground and play, because we have ballers in that team.
I think it's interesting there that you say about them knowing what they were supposed to be doing, because when we were talking about it in the preview show yesterday, we were also excited at the fact that Katie was playing a bit higher up the pitch. It was something everyone had called for. And I was listening to some of the post-match interviews, and I can't remember, was it Lei-Utd or Denise O'Sullivan was saying that they had been set up to defend. And I was like, I was confused by that comment, because we did end up having to defend with the way we played in that first half. But it's kind of like what you were saying there, where it seemed like there was a lack of the team actually knowing what they were supposed to be doing or where they were supposed to be. And I don't think it was the fact that purely that Finland were putting us under so much pressure that people were losing their heads, because, as you say, we know we're a better team. We know we have better ability. So do you think it was a lack of a clear team plan going into it, or was it just a case of the team went in and just got a bit caught up in the moment and weren't able to properly execute what they've been told?
I think it is trying to be positive in setting up a system, trying to be positive in a 3-4-3, which is a very, you know, confident, positive system. But realistically, it's not. It was a 5-2-3 most of the first half, which wasn't working. As we just said, midfield were getting completely overrun, when actually 3 at the back would have been absolutely perfect. And it's what they're going to have to get used to. And Finland played 2 up front with Salstrom and Rantala. We only needed 3 at the back, and you can push Jamie Finn and Megan Campbell on a little bit, but we were pinned in. We stayed back. We were extremely deep in the first half. I know Finland wanted to play that ball in behind, but the ball was skipping on. They could have pushed on a little bit. Courtney Brosnan was very good. She was starting very high. She was able to collect all those balls in behind. So for me, I'd want to help the midfield. Denise and Rusha were just getting absolutely, you know, completely stretched in that midfield. Just whatever you need to do, whether you need to push. I'd push Megan Connolly in there. There was no need for her to be at the back in a back 5. I'd push her in and keep my 4 at the back and just have that 3 in midfield, especially in that time we were getting overrun and Finland looked very, very dangerous. You know, Sumanen in there was having an absolute field day. But that changed in the second half. But my thing was, if that happens against a better team, a team that can finish, because Finland's final ball was pretty shocking. If they were playing against a good team that can finish, we would have been in a bit of trouble there. You know, we were inviting them on. Finland had really nice passages of play, really nice through balls. They just couldn't finish them. We might have been 2 or 3-0 down at half time, and you just can't afford those kind of goals at the high level. But again, it's all a learning curve. I spoke to some of the girls. They know exactly what they need to do, and they know where the problems were last night in the first half. They're intelligent players. It changed in the second half, as I said, which we were very happy to see.
It's interesting, Emma, when we talk about earlier, the Irish players nearly learning from the heartbreak of not qualifying for the Euros. But even more interesting, perhaps, is listening to Katie McCabe after the match yesterday, and she's talking about the fact that before this campaign, they would have played a lot of higher-seeded teams, big teams, and well-known players. Like, is that an important aspect of it too, that this Irish team maybe are getting used to those high-stress moments and playing against the biggest teams in the world?
Yeah, of course. You know, they need that. They need to play against higher levels in friendly so they can get themselves organised. You know, when we nearly qualified many years ago, we were playing against boys' teams, and it really helped us, you know, that higher level, faster pace. You have to think quick, you have to organise yourself a little bit quicker and problem solve. And they needed that. But, I mean, the main thing is the improvement is coming from club level, and girls going to England, playing for clubs over there, training with players that are very, very high standard day in, day out. And you can see that in the players, that's what's happening.
Yeah. Tuesday night, obviously we've been going through all the permutations and trying to figure it out, and we're somewhat the wiser. But bottom line is we obviously got a win on Tuesday night as well. There might be some enforced changes. I mean, I don't know. I was going to say Lei-Utd has sort of played her way into the team. She might be sort of into it regardless.
She was fantastic. I was very happily surprised with Lei-Utd, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
We had her at the Arsenal Academy again many years ago, and she was good, but could never break through to the first team. Just not really a first team squad player. So it was great to see her getting on out there and doing a really good job. Really impressed with her.
Yeah. And she probably comes into it then, Emma, like what you know, just on the basis of what you're saying there, if you draw that thread then through to Tuesday night, what are you thinking in terms of shape and personnel?
Well, I'm hoping, you know, I don't think they'll change much. I'm not sure Megan Campbell will play. I think Chloe Mustaki did a good job when she came on as well. That's not a problem. The only thing is the throw-ins, which are just out of this world. I think Lei-Utd will hold her position in there. She did really well. Rusha Littlejohn is injured. Not sure she'll be back. Obviously, Niamh Fahy's out, so they'll just keep those back three in Megan Connolly, Louise Quinn, and Diane Caldwell. And I'm just hoping that Jamie Finn and Mustaki, if she's playing, can push up higher and create that four in midfield. It's what we need. We saw Slovakia and Dublin. They're no slouches. They played really well. They can keep the ball really well and have some really nice parts of their game. So, you know, we have to be on form when we go over there. We want the 3 points. It's very, very important we get those 3 points. So I just, you know, I'm hoping that we see a more attack in Ireland and a team that's going to play and keep the ball. Because when you've got a player like Kate McCabe, who, by the way, was not in the game enough for me, like, that's my player. I'm going to try and get that ball. Denise O'Sullivan, as soon as you get the ball, switch it out to Katie. We didn't see enough of that in the first half, did we? We didn't. She wasn't involved enough. And I'm just hoping that when they do play and play through the midfield, that they'll be able to find the likes of Katie and Jess Zhu when she drops in. Hopefully we'll see her as well, because I'm looking forward to see how she does in a different game. You know, I'm hoping we're going to see some football and see how they can play. You know they can play football and they want to. So looking forward to that.
Funny, Emma, you mentioned the game all those years ago, back in 2009 for that Euro qualifier. And like Katie McCabe mentioned, yourself and Yvonne Tracy and Ciara Grant and girls like that, you know, by name after the match as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of advice handed over to the current squad from players like yourself when you're in discussions with them over the coming weeks. about what the playoff experience is like, because you're so close to a major finals and yet so far, and there's so much work to do. So what will your advice be to those current players in terms of dealing with the heat and the cauldron of a playoff environment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really need to speak to any of those girls. These have plenty of experience. They've been in big games, in cup finals, and, you know, they're all playing at a level now where they have that pressure. So, you know, the players in that squad, like Louise Quinn, Niamh Fahey, Kate McCabe, they'll be speaking to the girls. They'll know exactly what to say to them. But the only, you know, it's such a massive game. They're going to have to work on calming themselves down and focusing and, you know, really getting their game plan right and knowing exactly what they need to do in that game. And even if it is a little bit, you know, nasty, if you're trying to soak up the pressure, that's really difficult for these young players to have that mindset of, yes, you're going to be without the ball, you're going to soak up that pressure, and then you're going to try and take your chances. I mean, they're going to have to do that extremely well. But again, keeping the ball is so key when you do win it back. And again, last night, didn't see them doing that very well in the first half. So just, you know, these things that give your players confidence when you're on the ball to protect it. You don't have to like try and get rid of it. You can protect the ball and draw the foul. Hopefully Megan Campbell will be back. And, you know, those throw-ins are going to be a massive advantage for us.
One last one. Just, am I reading your comments about Katie, Emma, that she wasn't played in the position she should have been last night? We're obliged by contract to always talk about Katie McCabe's position, of course. But I know that people are blue in the face listening to the debate. But I just wanted to clarify on your comments. Are you thinking that the dip in her performance last night was more to do with tactics rather than the player herself?
No, I think she was playing in her position. She had loads of space. She had oodles of space on that left-hand side. It's just we couldn't get the ball out to her. I think we actually passed the ball out to the left-hand side maybe 3 times in the first half. So, you know, not enough. She wasn't on the ball enough, and that was nothing to do with her. She was in great positions. We just couldn't get the ball into midfield for them to then switch it. They were just overloaded. So just needed an extra player in there to try and switch that ball over to Katie. So yeah, she was playing higher up. We were very happy with that. Then started to drop back a little bit towards the end of the first half. So it was time. It was a good time for the first half. The break came at a good time, and then second half again, just putting that extra player in there made a big difference.
Yeah, well, hopefully it all comes together Tuesday night and we'll be a bit clearer about exactly what we need to do. Emma, pleasure as always. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Ireland legend Emma Byrne on the line there, picking through the bones of last night, and loads of comments coming into us as well. We've one here on YouTube from David Shaughnessy. He says, really delighted for Vera Pauw. The difficulties and pressure that she went through professionally and personally last night was a deserved achievement, which I think we can all get behind. And great win last night, says Bernard Lawless. It was a bit worrying in the first half, but we got the win and it's on now to Slovakia. So do keep those comments coming in. We've lots more to get to. We've a great lineup for you between now and 10 this morning, and we did, however, Shane, want to mention the fact that there are some high profile counties out there who are without a manager at the minute, and you know, apart from Westmeath, your own county, what's the story? What's going on?
Quite emotional about this, Adrian. So I thought we should have some music in the background while I spoke about this. Monaghan has been an unwanted county, I think, Adrian, for some time. The plantation of Ulster in the 1600s, they didn't want Monaghan. When you think about partition, we ended up on one side of the map, but no one really wanted us. Patrick Kavanagh, one of our most famous sons, described it as stony grey soil. That's not a very nice way of describing it himself. The Monaghan bus station, it's known as one of the worst bus stations in the country, and Monaghan is seen as a passing point to get to Donegal, but Monaghan has so much, Adrian. And I'd just like to make this call out this morning to all the free inter-county GAA managers out there who might be thinking of getting back into management. I'm thinking of some names here. Enda McGinley, gone from the Antrim job. He's a Tyrone man, so maybe it might be difficult for him to manage Monaghan, but who knows. Ray Dempsey. Ray, you didn't get the job with Mayo, and I know your heart lies in your home county, but come to Monaghan. We have so much to offer. Kevin Walsh is another, Adrian, another great man. Long journey up from Galway, but look, we look after the green diesel expenses. I mean the diesel expenses. But I've decided to pen a small poem to hopefully maybe try and bring some of these big names to Monaghan, because it's a job that's open. Westmeath is open too, as you said. Donegal is open. They can't seem to get a manager. But it's the 2nd of September, and Monaghan lost their manager on the 29th of June. So this is my poem, as yet untitled. 65 days ago, Banty was out the door. Second time's the charm, they said, but Monaghan folk wanted more. Tyrone's red hand did them in last year, another Ulster final loss, back to a summer of beer. This summer Derry had too much craft and grit, not to mention Rory Gallagher's hands full of spit. Mayo got us in the back door and McNamee was on his way. Who'll take over now? Sure, the sponsors will pay. J.O. Sherlock was mooted, a basketball background as well. Learned his trade under Gavin, a bigger catch than Odell. But the Dublin man pulled the pin like Shergar, he was gone. Division 1 football, not enough of a draw. Ger Brennan looked set and then he was out. Farney fans all over, driven to the Stout. From Carrick to Blaney, Ballybay to the town, we've been wondering who'll be next to take over the crown. An hour and a wee bit from Dublin, we've got food, golf and fishing. Rory Beggan can kick from anywhere, in sun, wind or pishin'. We haven't won Sam yet. Maybe you'll help us get our first. Come on up and drink the Oriel water high. We're all dying of thirst.
Beautiful. I have a tear in my eye. Passion plea. And I mean, if you don't fancy Monaghan, there was my gigs going as well. So, take your pick. Right, it is 8:15. You're watching OTB AM. We're delighted to have you with you this morning. A reminder as well, of course, the Premier League is back and we've teamed up with one of Europe's largest sports events, ticketing and hospitality companies, their Champions Travel. And we're giving you the opportunity to win a €250 Champions Travel voucher each day this week. That can be used on Premier League match trips as well as a host of other sporting events. So daily winners are going to be entered into a grand prize draw at the end of the week, where one lucky winner is going to win a trip from a selection of Premier League games with flights and 2 nights accommodation included. So it's a great prize. And to enter, just tell us who's this former Republic of Ireland manager who's listing his ideal fixture list.
Bolton at home, Spurs away, Manchester United away, Burnley, Liverpool, City.
The producer is really phoning it. It's Friday and he's phoning it in. He really made no effort with that at all. You can tweet us your guests on our main Twitter account. It's @OffTheBall, and it's a great prize. So stay tuned for more on that. We're back after the break with Daniel Harris to talk United.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Man City lose Ciara Walsh, they're not competing.
Did get yellow carded very early on in the match for being a bit too eager coming out of her goal and taking out, I think it was Leah Dalton. But
subscribe to the OTB Koi pod on the OTB Sports app now.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good, but this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, 18 minutes past 8 and Leicester 0, Manchester United 1 was the result we wanted to get stuck into last night at the King Power. From United We Stand last night. Daniel Harris, good morning to you.
Hello.
So we watched the game last night and I wondered afterwards whether it was a case that United are back and it's more evidence that Eric Ten Hag is all over this revolution, Daniel, or was it a scrappy win against a poor Leicester? Or maybe both are true, I don't know.
Yeah, I think both could be true. United played reasonably in the first half, had quite a lot of control of the game, which is one of the things that they've really struggled for under pretty much all the post-Fergie managers, is that ability to control the game. So that was definitely improving. And then in the second half, when they had to, they ground it out. And we saw that against Southampton too. And it's not the best way to win games. Obviously, the way you want to win a game is by playing your opponent off the pitch and dominating all the way through. But for a team that's developing, you can't really expect that at this stage necessarily. Although I felt like United should have finished both of those games much sooner than they did, particularly Leicester, who looked a really poor side, lacking in confidence, felt like it was going to be a long season for them. But at the same time, not scoring immediately, so then the game becomes difficult, and finding a moment of quality with the game already in progress, if you see what I'm saying, and then being able to see it out is not a bad skill to be honing, and probably quite good for confidence as well, because that's 2 clean sheets in a row. And if you'd have told me or told anyone with an interest in United doing well after Brentford that they'd win the next 3 games, they'd have taken that in any manner, and they've won those games in fairly pleasing ways, I think.
Regardless of the opposition last night and the sort of downward spiral almost in some ways that they're on, it does feel that whatever's going on at United, Ten Hag has introduced a breath for everybody. Everybody can stop, they can pause, bring a bit of rationality to the debate. Ronaldo is there, he's not making faces on the bench, he's coming on and he's doing a job for the last 25 minutes. He really seems to have, and look at, I was asking a big United supporting mate of mine yesterday, where is it on the scale of 1 to 10 is he at? I was expecting a sort of 6 or 7, and he was like, listen, I've come from the minus numbers and I'm about a 2 at the minute. But there does feel as if he's introduced, if nothing else, a breath, a calmness.
Yes, slowly. I don't think anyone was saying he'd introduced any kind of breath or any kind of calmness when people were losing their head after that Brentford game. But he's responded really well since then, and it is a process. The other day, actually, I'm going to say this, I guess I am. My dad, my old fella, had to have emergency surgery. That turned out of nowhere. Turned out it might actually be life-threatening. He's fine now. So before he was sort of being wheeled out to have this surgery that he may or may not have made it through, a mate of mine sent me a message and he said, tell Dave, that being my dad, to keep the red flag flying high. So I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to tell him and see what he says. So he's getting wheeled out there. And I said, keep the red flag flying. Benji, my friend, Beaky, says, keep the red flag flying high. And my dad puts his hand in the air and then he says, clenches his fist. And then he says, I hope I live long enough to see United win the league again. And I said, what are you talking about? Like, I hope I live long enough to see United win the league. Shut up. It's a process. It's a process. But it's nice when you're able to see instant improvements, more or less. And I think what happened against Brentford was, in a sense, that Brentford game, it wasn't necessary. But I think that Ten Hag picked the wrong teams for the first 2 games. And because Brentford was so bad, that it meant that he could then start making changes. And he could make a couple of drastic changes and no one would say, what are you doing? Because I felt like he probably wanted to drop Harry Maguire from the beginning, but he maybe felt that he didn't have the political capital to do it, because coming in and immediately saying to the captain, all right, mate, you sit this one out, is going to start attracting all kinds of unnecessary attention. And suddenly there's pressure. But because Brentford was so bad, he could bin off Luke Shaw and he could bin off Harry Maguire and no one could say anything. And he's now got, and that's made a massive difference. I mean, as I said before, Leicester were poor, but United gave them 1 chance in the 94th minute last night. That was the only time they got anywhere near United's goal. And one thing that's been constant in these 3 games, I think, is United have defended the box really well against Liverpool, against Southampton, and against Leicester. And I think what's happened in the back 4 is obviously having Varane fit is massive. Fit and playing, looking confident and playing regular games makes a massive difference, because obviously he's in a different league to Maguire and a different league to Lindelof. And putting Martinez and Malacia in there it's given United some aggression that they didn't have before. Luke Shaw probably is as talented as Malacia is. They're both really talented footballers. But what Malacia has that Luke Shaw doesn't have is he has that aggression, that desperation to win the ball, to get back, to get things done. He plays with a real sense of urgency and a real sense of intensity that is exactly what Luke Shaw does not do. And I think the same is actually true of Maguire and Martinez, in that Maguire does things slowly. He gets the ball. He's quite good on the ball, but he has a look. He runs with the ball, but he runs with it slowly. And he has a look. And should he make the pass? Should he not make the pass? Should he get in front? Should he stay off? Martinez just doesn't think about that. He gets in and he tries to win the ball. The ball comes to him, he tries to pass it forward. And the thing that United have lacked most of all with all the post-Fergie managers is tempo. The ability to sustain the attacks, the ability to move it forward. And they still have massive improving to do in this area. And I think that even on last night's performance, the only time I think they played with the proper tempo for a concerted amount of time was against Liverpool. And the way that Liverpool play the game sort of forces that tempo on you. But they're starting to improve because they've got players that are settling, that he sort of has a first team now, more or less. I mean, he'll make a couple of changes. At some point, Anthony's going to come in on the right. Might be at the weekend. At some point, Casemiro is going to come in for McTominay. But otherwise, he's got a team. They're starting to groove and they're starting to do things at a pace that you have to do things at if you want to be a good football team. United aren't a team. They don't have the players that could just endlessly keep possession and then find a goal. Like, they're a team that need to be proactive. They have players that are proactive because they have players that are more focused on taking risks and trying to make things happen than they are on trying to minimise risks by moving the ball about. And the strides that they've made since Brentford have been significant, but I mean, yeah, as your friend said, like, he's now at 2 because they were so low beforehand. So like, no one's getting too excited and looking, I don't think, and thinking that they're good yet, because they're not good yet. But you can see the path to being good. And hopefully they're on it. I mean, it looks like they're on it.
Daniel, I think the point was made on the commentary on BT Sport last night about the fact that Rafael Varane seems to almost excel beside a fiery central defensive partner. We saw him with Ramos, obviously, at Real Madrid, and now with Lisandro Martinez at United. Like, I don't think you'll see many United fans disagreeing that this central defensive partnership looks the business. And even you see moments of body language as well, and it's further to Adrian's point that, you know, when Dalot, for example, wins a goal kick and there's chest bumps straight over to Martinez with the chest bump, the Argentinian has brought something different to this United defence, and all of a sudden United seem to have a first choice central defensive partnership that nobody really disagrees with.
No, I mean, I think I said this after Brentford, that it didn't feel like the goals against Brentford were scored because he's not very tall. And what we're seeing is that timing and aggression are more important than inches, I think. Because, I mean, I felt like yesterday Varane was the better. I thought Varane was excellent yesterday. And because it's not like Varane is not an aggressive player either. Like, he's fast and he's the guy who tends to sweep up and is extremely handsome, which is also nice in that most good United sides have some seriously handsome blokes in it. And you want some rugged, extremely unhandsome blokes. Helps. Yeah, you want some rugged, extremely ugly lads, but you also need some classy-looking, handsome ones, and that is Varane. But he also, when he's defending well, Varane, he also doesn't wait to be asked, and it's that both of them have that aggression and that ability to know when to sell themselves almost. That sometimes defending is about standing up, and what you want to do is you want to jockey your opponent with your shoulders slightly open and make them make the first move, so that you know you can then respond to that first move, because if you dive in, you're then telling them where to go, because then they're just able to go where you are. And I think both of those centre backs, they're really good at knowing when you dive in and when you stand up. I mean, Martinez is usually trying to nip in, but Varane also is really good at knowing when to nip in and when you basically just need to make your body as big as possible and block things. And I think Malacia is good like that as well. That, I mean, he tends to follow the diving in school, but he's got the recovery pace and the ability to turn really quickly. I think he's a bit more agile than Luke Shaw, and it makes a big difference, I think, if the defenders outside you, for both the centre backs, have both got speed to cover. Whereas what you'd sometimes previously had was you had Maguire and Lindelof, both of whom were quite slow, and that put a lot of pressure on the fullbacks, because the fullbacks had to defend the flanks, but they also had to get pretty tight to their centre-backs, because neither of the centre-backs had anything amounting to recovery pace, and they were also quite error-prone. And that is not, I don't think, a good combination. It's an extremely avant-garde combination, I would say, for centre-backs. But what you're getting from both, like Varane, you get that composure and that confidence, because he knows that he is good enough to defend the best players at the highest level in the biggest games. And the confidence that gives you in your ability to make correct decisions is, I think, quite significant. And what we see with Martinez is he reads the game really well. So he also has the confidence just to make the right decisions. And then that kind of proactive defending enables you to get the ball forward more quickly. And the balance in midfield isn't quite right yet. It's getting there. I think once you put Casemiro in, I think what Ten Hag is doing is really, feels like he's making it clear that by not picking Casemiro yet, that in order to get in the team, it's not just about having been signed for an expensive transfer fee, even though Casemiro obviously has incredible pedigree, brilliant player, better than Scott McTominay, I think it's fair to say. because the team are winning, I think the point that he's making to the squad is that you get in the team. If the team's playing well and you're playing well, then you stay in the team. I don't know how that'll work for Arsenal. I would like to see a couple of changes for Arsenal because it feels like Casemiro is necessary if you want to play Eriksen and Bruno in a physical game, in a quick game. And it also felt like, although I wouldn't necessarily have spent the Antony money on Antony, I'm speaking from some ignorance because I'm not as familiar with Antony, obviously, as Ten Hag is. But I just felt like a right back and a centre forward both might have been more necessary than a winger. But it felt like last night we saw why Antony is necessary, because what happened when United were trying to kill the game and at the same time maintain some kind of threat on the counter is they felt like they were an attacking chain short, that they end up bringing on Ronaldo, taking off Rashford, moving Bruno to the flank, and then all of a sudden, and they've also taken Elanga off already, they've not really got enough pace on the counter. And with someone like Antony, what that gives you is it gives you a ball carrier. So it means that he can get the ball downfield, and it also just gives you a different attacking option without losing that massive threat on the break, which is something that United have. And also, I think, thinking about watching the game last night and thinking about why Ten Hag has signed Antony, it felt like if you want to play Eriksen and Bruno together in midfield, and it's clear that that is exactly what Ten Hag wants to do, then if you play two wingers who want to come inside, so you've got them they're both inverted. You've got Sancho playing on the left, coming inside on his right foot, and you've got Antony, who's left-footed, coming inside. Who's on the right, left-footed, coming inside on his left foot. Then what you've got is you've got two wingers that are basically able to carry the ball, able to move the ball, and that will give you that kind of level of control. Because if you think about those two players and the fullbacks and centre backs that can both play, then you're able to start outnumbering your opponents in midfield, and you know that whoever the ball goes to, there's a decent chance that you'll retain possession. And that, I think, is something that United are going to need to get better at. It's moving the ball quickly and having as much of the ball against good teams, whereas against Liverpool, they obviously ended up having really good, dangerous possession, but you don't want your opponents to have as much of the ball as Liverpool had in that game, even though it felt like for stretches like United were controlling it. And the way that Ten Hag, I think, wants to play is he wants, and you can see it with the players that he's bought, is he wants more of a possession team than a power team, and he wants United to control games, and that's something that they're getting better at, and something that I think that the new signings at the back help because they're good footballers, but also, and they want to win the ball quickly, but also I think Antony will help with that as well because he's able to carry the ball and he's able to come inside, and then that will help United have more men. And often in midfield, it's about a numbers game. If you watch the way that City play, and obviously they're any Guardiola team, that they are the best teams in possession that probably we've ever seen in the history of football. The way that they do it is they do it by sticking fullbacks into midfield. They have wide players then that are able to stay wide or come inside, and they have defenders that can play. And I think what United have managed to do is they've actually managed to get defenders who can play, who can also defend. And that's not something I would necessarily say about City's defenders. It's just they're so good at the possession bit that for them it's a risk worth taking to have defenders whose main attribute is their ability to help you dominate. And United actually have defenders who, in theory, when they get a bit better and when they get a bit more confident and a bit more grooved, will enable them to dominate, but can also defend, which is not me saying United are therefore going to be better than City. It's just, it's that line. I feel like it's only really Pep Guardiola whose teams can get away with cheating at the back, whereas any other team pretty much is coached by any other coach. They're still, to be effective in a league battle, particularly against these teams, you're also going to need to be able to dominate the ball, but you're going to need your defenders to defend, and it's that. And then packing the midfield, basically, that's going to enable United to go to the next level. So it's been decent so far, and what's more decent about it is that there are very obvious signs of where they might be able to get better. And I think Ten Hag has a decision to make about, does he try and get by against Arsenal with a team that, bottom line, he knows is not his best team? He knows his best team has Antony and Casemiro in it. Is he going to try and get away with it against Arsenal to make a point to the players that places have to be earned? Or is he going to pick what he thinks is his strongest team and try and get it going because they're playing good opponents? I don't know.
And we shall see what happens on against Arsenal the weekend as well. Daniel, thanks a million.
No worries. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Daniel Harris there. United we stand picking through events at the King Power Stadium last night. The Leicester conversation is another one worth having at some point down the track as well, because they do appear to be on a bit of a downward spiral at the minute. Do keep your comments coming into us. It's 25 to 9. You're watching OTB AM. We're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We did want to turn our attention to a story that's been dominating a lot of conversation around the dinner table and a lot of WhatsApp groups over the last 24, 48 hours. Events at Ballyforan in Roscommon during the week, where a referee was involved in an incident where he had to be brought off to hospital after the game, an under-17 match between St Aidan's and St Dominic's. There's further fallout from it this morning. It now seems like all of this weekend's Roscommon football championship games are going to be postponed. There was a meeting, it appears, last night, and referees in the county have opted to go on strike until Sunday midnight following the incident in Ballyforan during the week. So that's where that's at. We're going to be joined on the line in a few moments' time by inter-county referee David Gough. Delighted to say that we are joined in studio by another inter-county referee, Martin McNally. Good morning to you, Martin. Thanks for coming in.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Good. This story was something we weren't sure how to approach. We did feel as if we needed to have a conversation about it, so thanks a million for coming in, because I think it's important that at this time, and even further to the developments this morning, that we hear from people who are at the front line of it as such, and we're conscious as well that we need to let justice, sporting and potentially otherwise, take its course. So there's a gap in the video, and we might let whatever justice that arises over the next few days and weeks fill that gap, and we'll be conscious of that as we pick through it as well. Your thoughts when you saw the video?
Yeah, look, at obviously the version that we've seen is I suppose shielded a little bit from potentially what happened, but yeah, it, I suppose disgust is the overwhelming I suppose feeling from every referee in the country, because that could have been any of us. And I suppose you don't think about it until you see something like that. It brings it very much home to I suppose realise that, as I said, it could have been anyone, and like no referee goes out to spend 60-70 minute game ending up in hospital at the end of it, so they all go out to do their job to the best of their ability, and it was just very sad to see what happened the other night.
I'm looking at stats here in front of me, Martin, and like I think these stats came from Dr. Noel Brick from Ulster University. Like nearly 95% of 438 GAA referees surveyed experienced verbal abuse. 23% reporting physical abuse. Like I was texting you about this incident yesterday, and you used that word disgusting. Were you surprised, or is it not that surprising?
It's not that surprising. I suppose what Noel Brick in the University of Ulster has done, it's an incredible body of work that they've done, and I know that the GAA have contributed in some of those facts and figures. They've worked at it, and the GAA have not hid behind this. We all know, we're very aware that it happens out there. But until now, until Noel Brick took this body of work on, there hasn't been any meat on the bone in terms of numbers and figures. Now we have something to work with, and we've stats to improve. I suppose the interesting thing that Noel did was he compared them to figures within other sports, so soccer in Ireland and soccer in mainland Europe as well. And our figures are a little bit higher than them, but they're not. They're not massively different. So I suppose for the first time ever, we actually have figures to work with, and we have a target. Now we have a target. It doesn't matter what you're in, if you're in business or whatever, you need a target. So now we have a target, and we have something to work with, and we have something that we can improve on. Is it going to be an overnight fix? No. How do we fix it? Well, that's the next question. There's an action plan to be put in place now to see what the next step is to improve that, because ultimately, we want to improve the respect for officials out there, and we want to improve the spectacle. We want people, spectators, young kids, young adults who are playing the game to have a good experience of our sport and not have any negative impact as a result of it. And we're just not talking officials here. The abuse out there, I suppose we've moved on to a whole new level of abuse now with cyber abuse, online, and I suppose it's important to remember, yes, we're focusing on referees here at the moment, but managers, players are all subject to this, and it just depends what time of the year and what the incident is on who's been the target of that abuse.
It's a bad culture of it out there. What's your lived experience? Because like the one thing that I've been able to establish over the last 24 hours was, and it wouldn't have taken a rocket scientist, there does appear to have been physical contact. The nature exactly of that, there's loads of different reports about exactly what that is, and we'll let that be established, but there was physical contact. Have you had that in your experience?
No, I've never experienced physical interference or any type of physical abuse. I've received the verbal, and I don't think. I think Shane highlights the stats there. They're in the 90% mark. So that nearly puts everybody in the bracket that have been abused verbally. We want to improve on that. We definitely want to improve on it. But in terms of the physical, no. And we are talking. We are talking about physical abuse incidents. They are so much in the minority. I know the figures there that Noel has come out with, but we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of games within the association, both in Ireland and abroad. Like the GA is a worldwide organisation. So, but it's the numbers that Noel has come out with now that gives us a target to improve on that, and I think that the GA, I know there's an appetite and I know there's a momentum, and I suppose maybe that momentum now is even stronger than ever after what happened the other night to come up with a change, and there's new energy. And I think that's not just within the refereeing circles, that's within the GA community, that there's an appetite and there's a willingness to try and improve what we're witnessing here at the moment.
David Gough, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How are we?
Good. Martin's just been outlining his thoughts on the clip. Disgusted but not surprised, I think, sums it up. Your view?
I suppose it's frightening when sitting down and thinking about it last night. I don't think in all my years of refereeing, going to an underage game or a club game in Meath, that anywhere in my thought process for the match that evening that I was worried for my physical safety or any potential danger on the pitch. It never came in to my mindset at all. And I'm just thinking about the referee in question, who probably left his family, like most of us would on an evening, picked up a couple of umpires maybe for a midweek game and went to the match, laughing, joking, having fun with his umpires, and walked out there thinking, it's a minor game, there's no threat to me or to anyone else. But to leave the field and in an ambulance is a shocking end to what's supposed to be a very enjoyable pastime for a referee, and it certainly has never reared its head for me in club games in Meath. I've never felt in any sort of danger or of physical abuse or altercation, and I think it's a sad day for the association, albeit, as Martin has rightly pointed out, an isolated incident. We don't have the data to back up how many physical assaults there are on match officials, but of the thousands and hundreds of thousands of club games, school games, college games that go on within any GA calendar year, it's very rare we hear of this type of situation.
David, I remember we did a Saturday panel on Off the Ball, I think it was back in 2018, where we were discussing referee abuse, and by chance the day before the panel, news broke of a referee being kept in his dressing room, locked in his dressing room for 20 minutes during a Donegal under 14 match for his own safety. Now that's 4 years ago. The infamous incident in the Leinster final, of course, 12 years ago. Are the GAA learning here? Is enough being done? Are there enough supports for referees who might be suffering online abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse? Or what's your take on how it's being handled?
Well, first of all, I'd say those things are sometimes reported on no different than what we're speaking about this morning. But the very nature of the GAA is that an inter-county player will get injured next week, or there'll be a new appointment in Donegal or Monaghan, and the media train moves on, and it's quite often quickly forgotten, and very little is done in follow-up to it. And you're right to mention those incidents, albeit them isolated incidents. Have the GAA learned? I don't think that they're turning a blind eye to this. I think I have looked at their strategic plan for the next 4 years, the 2022 to 2026 strategic plan, and they've come out and said that they're looking at greater recruitment and retention of referees, greater investment of referees, and have listed as one of their desirables greater respect to garner greater respect for match officials. My problem is we see all these strategic plans, and they've been there since 2015, and they're like a wish list of things that the GA would aspire to do over the coming 3 years. But very often those plans are left on the shelves, and they're very rarely enacted with any real or meaningful backup to them. And, optimising respect for match officials, what are they going to do about that? What have they done in the past? We can look at the Give Respect, Get Respect initiative that was rolled out, which is a lovely slogan if everybody understands it. But it is only an initiative. It is up to the players, the managers, the match officials to sign up to that. And if they don't, well, there's no sanction as a result of it.
It sounds like you're saying that Croke Park could be doing an awful lot more.
I think they could be, but I think it's a difficult fix. It's not something that's easy. It is, as I see it, coming from an educational point of view, an educational fix. We need to get in at the under-8s, the academies, the under-10s, and we need to be rolling out educational programs to those kids about optimising match respect or respect for match officials, because that's where it needs to start. That's where the culture change needs to start. And if you can get the mindset right with children and underage, it'll eventually roll over in 6 to 8 to 10 years' time. But it is that education, because far too often our coaches, our GDOs are quite very well versed and skilled in upskilling the children in the skills of Gaelic games. But if you ask anyone what their definition of respect is, you're going to get a different response. There's 4 of us here this morning, and if I asked any of you to define what respect is, we get 4 different responses. And then how to tie that in to what your definition is to what you would see on a Gaelic football field is an extremely difficult thing for people to do. So it does take an education piece around that to change the culture.
What about that point, Martin, just in relation to I think Dave makes a very fair point about the news cycle, that there's a bump in this stuff now, and as I said, it's in all the WhatsApp groups. People who don't follow sport are talking about it. It's obviously dominating main news headlines, and that's grand, but that all dies away next week, and you lads are still left there going, right, who's batting for us now?
Yeah, something, I suppose these things have a habit of going down the stream with the next batch of news that comes along. The GA, I think David's 100% right. The GA are working on it. They are slightly hamstrung in the sense that they're such a massive organisation, and it's very hard for them to reach out to every little corner of Ireland to fix the issues that are going on, and they're relying on, I suppose, filtering out from Croke Park, going down to the provinces, going down to the county boards, then out to the clubs, and there is an effort going on out there. I think this is actually going to up the ante in terms of the effort that's going on out there. I just want to go back to David's other point there in terms of the education. I think we've a massive asset nationwide, and it's already in place in terms of the Common the Munskol, the GDOs. Every primary school in the country has a GDO going in. I think there's a possibility or an opportunity to use them people and the likes of the Common the Munskol as an educational tool and educate the kids at a very young age, and also in turn bring that education home to the parents. Every young kid has to do their homework with their parents, and let's bring some of that in, that the parents are involved, and we start, I suppose, getting the message out there about the respect of officials, the respect from players to officials, managers, spectators towards officials, and then when we start slowly, I think everybody who's involved in officiating in GA games will be held in a higher esteem, and it's as David said, it is a cultural thing, but it is fixable. You're never going to eliminate it. It doesn't matter. You can never legislate for what a human interaction is going to be and a response or reaction like on the pitch, but I definitely think that there's an opportunity there, and it does, realistically, everything boils back to the education.
The one thing that you would say is that in terms of tackling it, of course, those things you talk about, and it strikes me that and I was delighted to hear you talk about the parents, because I think that is a piece that's as important as anything else in those conversations, because as much as you can do with the education of kids at a younger age group, they're going home, and that's probably the biggest lesson they're getting. But the other thing obviously is where, and speaking generally as opposed to about this specific incident, where a physical altercation is proven and established to have happened, you have to throw the book at that person, right? Like that's the message now that comes out of an incident like this. There's no place for you in our games.
Absolutely, you know, there has to be ramifications for what's after happening. You can never reward bad behaviour, and that's in any form of walk of life. You know, you have to be able. There has to be consequences. You know, if you go down the road and you speed on the M1 at 150 kilometres per hour, there's going to be a repercussion for that. So in every walk of life, there has to be a repercussion. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of what there should be and what there shouldn't be, because as you said at the outset, there's an ongoing investigation and that. But yes, it doesn't matter what it is. There has to be a consequence for what's happening, and the consequence in this case, I assume, will be quite severe.
There does tend to be a bit of a culture, David, as well, of in GAA, particularly for whatever reason, of kind of ducking and diving, and you take the hit for this and we'll cover up this thing over here, and like there does tend to be that sort of a culture of it, and like almost a bit of omerta. You would hope that in an incident like we saw the other night, that there are 30 players on the pitch, God knows how many, maybe 100 people in terms of subs and other coaching staff and people watching it. The onus now is on those people to come forward and say, here's what happened.
Yeah, that would be the honourable thing to do, and you would hope that is what's going to happen. I don't want to comment on an ongoing investigation and the allegation. I mean, we don't know exactly what's happened. I'm sure Roscommon and CCC will finish their report and they'll send it into Croke Park. I would imagine that at the highest level, both the Uachtaráin and Ard Stewart are extremely disappointed that this has fallen on the GAA's desk this week, and I think that they would certainly await the report from the CCC before they get involved or make any statements, if they are even going to do that. But it does come back to as you called it, the ducking, the diving, and we see far too often at club level as well as inter-county level, people not owning up and taking responsibility for their actions. We find it extremely frustrating as referees that we implement the rules on the playing field, and then in the boardrooms in the week afterwards, that legal teams can come in and face against GA volunteer committees and hearings committees, and players get off on all sorts of technicalities, and it's extremely frustrating. And I hope that isn't the case in this instance. I think the honourable thing for people to do is, if they are contacted, to be honest about what they have seen or what they have heard, and let the investigation come to full fruition based on the facts.
Martin, I remember hearing from Brian Gavin, the former inter-county hurling referee, before, and he was talking about the fact that he watches rugby games and he's jealous, like he's envious of the way players talk to referees and the way, I guess, referees talk to players back. Like, do you ever sit and watch other sports, maybe soccer as well, and almost jealous of the way in which referees are treated?
Yeah, there is times, there is times, particularly in rugby, because of the massive level of respect between players and referee happens. Yes, there is times where you would say, gosh, I'd love that to happen in our game. I suppose we're going back to the education and the communication here. A rugby referee will go in and speak with the teams before a match, and there's a rapport between the team and the referee, and they know where they stand before the kick-off even happens in rugby. Likewise in the Premier League, at the start of the season, the managers will come in, the referees body will come in, and they'll say, right, here's the issues that we had last season and here's how we're going to combat them, and it's up to you as coaching staff to implement your game plan around these changes that we're going to make to improve our game. The same in Australian football, where the referee speaks with the teams before the game. So it's all down to dialogue and communication. And I suppose yes, I do get jealous, but sometimes maybe a little bit of dialogue and an openness, and we can learn from rugby in terms of what they do, can solve a lot of the situations that we have in our game, But, you know, we're a different sport. You know, we can't tar every sport with the same brush, you know, and we are a different sport. We are a voluntary organisation. The players, the managers, the officials, we're all voluntary. And it's very hard for us to get the time to treat it like a professional sport. They're all paid to do their job, and they have the time and they have the schedule. People make a schedule for them to go in and do all these things. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, at times I am envious of it, yeah.
I asked David this question already when we chatted a couple of months back, so I'll ask you as well. Should there be some professional referees in GAA?
It depends, I suppose, depends what model you would go with. At the minute I would say no, but if there was an appetite within the GAA for a number of referees down the line, I do see a use for them, where they would be your full-time referees. They would also be involved in coaching and improving the standard of your referees in the provinces and the counties nationwide. They would also be involved in, I suppose, in the off-season stuff. We now have a longer off-season, particularly for inter-county. So in the off-season, they would get, I suppose, a longer and a better opportunity to work with the referees and maybe take, I suppose, some new referees through. But at the minute, I don't think that's something that's on the table. But if it was, there is a use for them. But as I said, the GAA is a voluntary organisation. You know, the employees of the GAA, you know, are necessary for the day-to-day running of it, but I don't think I suppose professional referees are a necessity at the moment.
David, you mentioned the word recruitment there a short while ago. Like, I almost, you're sitting there thinking, how are the GAA going to entice young men and women to get involved and become referees? Like, is that an issue now when young people turn on the news and see incidents like this happening? Like, is recruitment of referees a major issue at the moment? Is it difficult to get them on board?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think it's a new phenomenon that we're aware that the recruitment of referees is extremely difficult. The incident during the week is just going to be a further deterrent. If you ask most of the referees, or certainly inter-county referees, how they fell into refereeing, none of them are ever going to say, well, I wanted to be an inter-county referee and referee an All-Ireland football final. It's usually something that happens by accident when a referee doesn't turn up to a game and you're asked to officiate it because you're just a bystander at the pitch and you might know the rules. So recruitment of referees is extremely difficult, and it is a difficult pathway to navigate to get from maybe an underage referee or a minor level referee onto the panel, we'll say, at senior club, onto a provincial panel and onto an All-Ireland panel. And it's very difficult and it's time consuming, and it involves an awful lot of waiting. And unlike being a player, if you're a good minor player or a good under-21 player, you have a straight pathway into the senior county team. If you're a good minor referee or a good under-21 age referee, it takes you a long time to get to senior club within your own county, even longer to get onto a provincial panel, and even further longer to get into an All-Ireland panel. And that because that's just the way the pathway works. So what you end up doing is having good referees in their early 20s who never get near an All-Ireland panel until their mid-30s. And that can be extremely frustrating, a long waiting process. And of course, there's fall-off then. We have a problem with retention because of the length of time it takes to travel that pathway and get to the top, and that can be extremely frustrating. But the recruitment thing is really difficult. We see in most counties now at the moment struggle to get referees in to do the referee a course at the beginning of the year. And no games, I'm aware that not many games are falling by the wayside, but that's not because we have a huge volume of referees. It's that we have a dedicated core of referees in most counties that are going out 2, 3, 4 nights a week to officiate. But the GAA is going to have a problem going forward if they don't tackle the respect level and the recruitment level of match officials.
I'm conscious that you both are, particularly with you, David, the noise going on in the background there, you've stuff to get to. So one last one from me, just on the Roscommon. I don't know, were you with us at the start, David, but just to recap from Roscommon this morning, where the games there for the weekend have been postponed as referees have decided to take a step back as events from the other night unfold and investigations continue. Can you understand that mindset?
That's the first I've heard of it, and it would take me back to the events of the Dublin Schoolboys League that happened earlier on this year, and it's unfortunate that it has come to this. I would say that I understand the referees in Roscommon's viewpoint on this, but also I would hope that they would allow due course to take place, allow Roscommon County Board to follow up with their investigation and make their report and let that follow through. I wouldn't like to see an overly big knee-jerk reaction to this. It is one incident, it is being dealt with, and I would hope that those referees will go back to refereeing as soon as they're happy with what Roscommon County Board are doing.
Yeah, a meeting between referees and board officials held last night, and games to be postponed this weekend. That's the way it's been worded there. David, we'll let you off. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much, guys. Have a good morning.
Martin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, it's a massive show of solidarity with the referees in Roscommon, and I'm sure it didn't happen without dialogue between the referees board and the Roscommon County Board, and if they felt that was the right thing to do, well, I'm sure that they've gone with it. And I suppose things are a bit raw in Roscommon at the moment. You can imagine what it would be like to be a referee in Roscommon this morning. I can only imagine, and I'm sure things are quite raw down there, and maybe, I suppose, more so than it being I suppose a fallout, I think it's maybe a chance for them to control, alt, delete, and just take a step back and draw a breath from what's after happening, because of a lot of the referees in Roscommon would be personal friends with that man, and I think more so than it being I suppose something to get a reaction, it may just be the right thing to do and just take a break, and just say, okay, we'll come back at it again in 2 weeks' time. Yeah, and we wish him obviously a full recovery as well, which is something I should have said much earlier, which is the important part of all of this. Listen, we really appreciate it. We thought it was an important conversation to have, and we appreciate you dropping into us. Perfect, lads. Thanks
you. Martin McNally there, and David Gough as well on the line. It's just gone 9 o'clock. You're watching OTB AM. We're with you until 10. We have the former Westmeath manager Jack Cooney standing by. He's going to join us in just a couple of moments' time. Reminder, by the way, the Premier League is back, so we've teamed up one of Europe's largest sports events ticketing and hospitality companies. They're Champions Travel, to give you the opportunity to win a €250 Champions Travel voucher each day this week, and they can be used on Premier League match trips as well as a host of other sporting events. Daily winners are also entered into our grand prize draw, where one lucky winner is going to win a trip from a selection of Premier League games with flights and 2 nights accommodation included. It's pretty sweet. And to enter, just tell us this man who's bragging to his friends as he lists the sides that he once beat all in one sitting.
Bolton at home, Spurs away, Manchester United away, Burnley, Liverpool, City.
You can tweet us. He doesn't need to say. It's literally like one syllable of what he says, and everybody knows who it is. You can tweet us your guess on our main Twitter account, which is @OffTheBall. We're going to be back after the break with the first ever Tailteann Cup winning manager Jack Cooney on his new role at Croke Park as the National Player Development lead following his departure as the Westmeath football manager, and David Connolly, who was on last night's show, talking about the impact of new Manchester United signing Anthony that he can have on the club. We're back after these.
One transfer that has obviously gone through today as expected is Anthony has confirmed that deal. So I'm just thinking there tonight, like maybe it's a bit early for Elanga in terms of like starting lineup, and he does kind of fit nicely in there, doesn't he, in that position with Sancho and Rashford. Suddenly that front three looks a little bit more vital, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess, look, what are we looking at? We're probably looking at highlights. Everyone looks at the same sort of bits and pieces from Anthony. And you don't want to draw comparisons, but when they signed Ronaldo, everyone thought he was a bit of a step-over merchant or a skill merchant, and then, doubted his end product. Well, Anthony looks like that from the clips, right? I mean, we just don't know how he's going to develop. He's only 22 or whatever. He's probably a little bit older than Ronaldo was when he first went to United. But nonetheless, it's got kind of reminds me of that, where they're signing someone who, looks really, really talented, very skillful, tries the audacious, looks really confident. And that's the sort of player they need. Someone who basically will have the balls to go and play at Old Trafford and not mind if he makes a mistake, and has got that confidence, So many players got at United, and, Dan James springs to mind, and he says, I went to United as one player, and in the end, I stopped being the player that got me there. Well, I don't think Anthony's going to be like that. He looks a really confident lad, believes in himself, very skillful, and like Ronaldo was, I think, first time around. So, we'll have to wait and see, right? I mean, we just don't know. But I think not just ability, it's the personality and the character to play at United, because, you know, it demands so much of you, not just your ability, but, you know, receiving the ball when maybe things aren't going your way. And Anthony looks like he's got that confidence no matter what.
And that full chat with David Connolly, you can check out any of our podcast feeds, and it's up on YouTube as well. And just a reminder as well about the breaking news story this morning from Roscommon that all of this weekend's Roscommon Football Championship games are set to be postponed, reports Will O'Callaghan and others, after referees in the county opted to go on strike until Sunday midnight following the incident during the week, which I'm sure everybody is very familiar with at this stage. In the under-17 match in Ballyforan, St Dominic's and Crockery up against St Aidan's of Ballyforan on Wednesday night, and the video clip has been doing the rounds. I'm sure you've seen it by now, and doesn't show exactly what happened, and we do need the full facts to be established, and for that we need the spectators and the coaches and the players and everybody who saw what happened to speak up and let the facts be known. No time for omerta now. Let's the facts get out there, let them be known, let them be spread far and wide, and let's send out the correct message out of this. And when the facts are known, and if there's a physical altercation, it's up to Croke Park, as we've been discussing over the last little while, to take the fullest of actions, and that's the real support. We hope the referee involved makes a full recovery, and that's the sort of support that he needs. And it's really outrageous, as Martin and David have been outlining, that a referee goes out to take charge of an under-17 game and it ends up the way it did. So we'll continue to follow and report on developments in that. It is 9:05. You're watching OTB AM. We're with you until 10 this morning, and delighted to say that the Tailteann Cup winning manager, former Westmeath manager Jack Cooney, is on the line. Morning, Jack.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Good. Former Westmeath manager. It pains me a little bit. How does it sound to you?
Oh, very painful. Very painful, but very, very thankful for the 4 great years I had there, and my previous involvement over the years before that as well. So, but look at it, I'm not going anywhere either. I'm still going to be working towards the future of Westmeath, and really looking forward to that.
Yeah, like in one way it's an unbelievable way to bow out, like it's the most successful year since 2004, but in another way, what a wrench, given I know you talk about obviously all the way back to your playing days, but particularly over the last 5 years.
Yeah, we had some great times. We had a great bond and a great environment, and that was kind of really evident after we won the Tailteann Cup this year. So I guess there's really no good time to leave. But, you know, when an opportunity presents itself like it did, it's very, very difficult to turn it down. And, you know, secondary to my love and passion for Westmeath football, I also love coaching. And this is a really, really good opportunity to develop myself personally and hopefully bring it back into the realms of Westmeath down the line.
You touch on the culture that was there, and certainly interested during the year listening to your chats with Jerry Russell and with the wider press indeed about your relationship with the players and the culture and the community that you wanted to instill there. You came across as very thoughtful in terms of supporting the player group. Was that a big mantra for you over the last 5 years?
I think what from the get-go, one of the important things that I wanted to get across was our collective responsibility to try and drive Westmeath forward. You know, that was first and foremost one of our motivations, and always something that we work towards. So, like, players and coaches and managers come and go, but Westmeath will always be there. So I wanted to have something that both everybody that's involved in the group can leave something after them and leave it in a better place. And I know that's probably a little bit cliched at the moment, but it's very, very important. And I always said, from my own personal perspective, I wouldn't judge myself on what I achieved or what this group achieved within the 3 or 4 years that we were there, but maybe 6 or 7 years after we've left. And I think I'd be more interested in that than what we've achieved, you know.
Like, Jack, you talk about your love and interest in player development. There's probably not many more things you can do for player development than maybe win a trophy for a county that doesn't win trophies too often. Like, I still remember Monaghan winning a Division 2 league title years ago and a civic reception in Monaghan Town. Like, we all saw the scenes in Mullingar after the Tailteann Cup success this year. Like, is the hope that incidents like that and moments like that can help inspire the next generation of footballers in your county?
Well, I think it's important to know the top counties have experiences like that. They provide experiences like that to their supporters much more often. In counties like Westmeath, who are working very, very hard to develop it, to raise the standards, to connect with the younger supporters and younger players, we need something every generation or every now and again. Like 2015 was probably the last big thing. I know the lads got to 2 Leinster finals, but beating Meath for the first time ever, that meant an awful lot to Westmeath. This year we won the Talton Cup. 2004 we won the Leinster. We had success with underage for probably 10 years prior to that. And all of these things are just very, very important for fueling motivation and passion and commitment from the next generation of footballers coming through. And I just felt, look, I think while it's always great to win a championship match, you know, and in terms of the Talton Cup, it's extra special winning a championship match in Croke Park. And then to put them back to back is extra special. And then not only that, you have a younger generation of supporters in Westmeath who travel to Croke Park, experience a great day, and then see Kevin Maguire lift a piece of silverware. So hopefully that'll be etched in their memory, and that'll drive them forward and, you know, maybe play the game a wee bit more and maybe be a little bit more determined to go out and represent their club and go on and represent their county.
Just talking about that piece around, like, exactly that point, leaving Westmeath sort of football in a better position 6-7 years down the line. Where do you trace that philosophy, if that's not too lofty a phrase for back to? I've been influenced and touched by so many great coaches that I've experienced over my career. But I really understand what the GA is all about. You know, that community, that identity, the parochialism and so on is a very, very important part of it. And Westmeath just got into my blood, you know, as a young kid and as a young player. And I've always wanted Westmeath to do well, you know, and there's many, many ways of doing that. Winning is one way, but I think setting realistic targets is another thing. But I think just being really, really good role models is very, very important for our lads to show a good example and influence the younger generation of players coming through, because, you know, that's very, very important to me.
Sorry, Adrian, like just that word parochial that you mentioned there, Jack, like it adds a different element to it when you're a local manager. I think Brian Murtagh was maybe the last Westmeath man to manage the county back in '92, before yourself, of course. Like, does that add a different element to it? I know a lot of counties at the minute who are looking for managers or trying to think whether the right idea is to go outside the county or from within. Like, did that when you first took over, and I guess we can get nostalgic about your time in charge now, but did that add an extra layer of pressure? Because everyone in the county knows you, of course.
I guess how I would reply to that, it's very, very difficult looking at your own situation. But what I would certainly say, this year we brought in, we had Cathal Mullen involved previously, and Cathal was involved with us again this year. Then we brought in Desi and John Kane this year. And I could get the sense of talking to the players, how much it meant to the players to have Westmeath people driving it on and, you know, involved in the management and the coaching aspect of it. And that's when I really got a sense of what it meant to the players. Before that, I probably wasn't, even though I worked hard and I wanted to get more Westmeath people involved. Hopefully then that will filter its way down, because, you know, it becomes a systematic approach then. You know, you start developing your own coaching philosophy within the county, you start developing your own coaches. There's a pathway there for them. So this year, I'd say, just going back to your question, this year was probably the first year I realised by talking to the players how important it was for them to have the likes of Cathal, John Kane and Desi involved.
I'm funny for all that, Jack. I have to say, from listening to you over the last few minutes, there's huge shades of what Paddy would have spoken about, like the, you know, punch in the tree is, you know, that's like trying to punch a Westmeath man or whatever, and the Alan Mangan, famous Alan Mangan speech about no Westmeath man and the loaf of bread and all that stuff. Like, there's definite influences of that, it seems to me, in you.
Yes, and like, look, I spent 2 years with Paddy, and it was remarkable. It was a magical time, and what a great coach and a great Shanachie and storyteller and fantastic motivator. And I certainly listened a lot more than I spoke in those couple of years, I can tell you that. But it's amazing, even the current bunch of lads, how much 2004 meant to them as younger people, younger persons, young supporters. And they always refer back to that, you know, and how much that helped them and how much that inspired them. And all we're doing in our little patch in Westmeath is just trying to do really good housekeeping, try to ensure that we're competitive down the line, and just commit to that process and commit to that kind of longevity of Westmeath. If we can consistently compete at a higher level or at the next level, and we're pushing for that, I think that should raise the standards throughout the county, because the clubs are putting in huge work. They're developing a line of players coming through. There's a great love of the game in Westmeath, and we're just very happy that we can represent that.
Even Jack, like we're speaking about the start of the show this morning about counties like Donegal and Monaghan maybe struggling to find an inter-county manager at the moment. Like, as someone who's been in that position for the last number of years, and obviously there's the intense scrutiny on social media and stuff, and things aren't going as well as they should be. Like, can you understand why some people would be reluctant to step into inter-county management now that you're looking from the outside in?
It is demanding. There's no doubt about that. It is demanding. But you need to know what you're getting into. You know, maybe to me, I never really put pressure on winning anything. Never really put pressure on myself, I'll be honest. Never really put pressure on the players. But I felt there's a process that you need to get through about making sure players are happy, make sure players feel that they're challenged, make sure that they are getting something out of it and not just giving all the time. And getting something out of it, their reward, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cup. You know, it's a symbol for sure of their hard work. But I think it's very important that they're continuously enjoying it. And how they enjoy it is through, you know, it's a great lifestyle. You know, they're fit all the time, they eat well, they rest well, they recover well. It's a great bunch of competitive athletes to be involved with. You're dealing with very good coaches trying to improve you personally and as a footballer and an athlete. So it's a fantastic environment to be in. But in some cases, in some counties, there's more pressure on delivering results and winning. In Westmeath, I never felt that. You know, I don't think the players felt that. I try to insulate them from it, and we try to just be better every week. So I guess it just depends how you interpret what the demands and what the expectations are.
Can I ask you a couple of ones just on the footballing side of things, Jack? First of all, on the journey this year, and particularly for me, the 20 minutes against Longford, where it was a slow start and suddenly Westmeath turned up and killed the game, and looked like they were playing at a level that if they played for that like that for against any of the top teams for a prolonged period, that they'd put it up to them. Did you know that was that a moment for you where the penny kind of dropped, or did you know, listen, there's something, you know, long before that, there's something brewing here?
Yeah, you know, even like in a season, and even within a game, you're searching for form, and you're searching for something to click, or you're searching for something to just drop. I think when you go you'll certainly carry a bit of form from competition to competition. Yeah, and a lot of it is just really trusting the players, you know, and the players believing that they have the work done. It was a disappointment for us not to get promoted from Division 3. We had opportunities, but in hindsight, if we had got promoted, we wouldn't have experienced what we experienced with the Tailteann Cup. We ran Kildare close to 3 points, and they were well-deserved victors on the day. We were second best for sure, and they beat us by 3 points. If we had brought that to 3 points on the 65th, 66th minute, it would have been an interesting last 10 minutes. And if we had won that, we wouldn't have been able to enter the Tailteann Cup. So I don't know. Sometimes things are just made out, they just happen for a reason. And I think in hindsight, what we experienced with the Tailteann Cup as a result of the performances we put in prior to that, I don't think, maybe getting a moral victory or a moral defeat in a Leinster final, or maybe a qualifier down the line, it definitely wouldn't have delivered what we experienced travelling home after winning the Tailteann Cup.
No, there's a real, and I've sat through the deflation about the excitement about getting to a Leinster final, and everybody knows what's coming down the turnpike, and it's a hard one to deal with. And we've actually chatted to Andy McEntee not that long ago in studio here, shortly after his time at Meath came to an end, and Billy O'Loughlin of Longford as well, about the value of the Leinster Championship. What's your, as a team who've, I don't know, has anybody come close to putting it up to Dublin over the last while, but certainly contested plenty of Leinster finals against them over the last number of years. What's your view on the value or otherwise of the Leinster Championship?
What I'd say to you on that is, like, when the new proposals came up for the championship earlier in the season, I asked the players what was their thoughts, and they really value a provincial title. They would love to win a Leinster Championship, and they want to win a Leinster Championship. It rates very, very highly on their bucket list, or what they'd like their list.
I'm surprised to hear that in some ways, Jack.
Yeah, they really are. And, when we had the green and the blue proposals for the new championship structure, the lads, to a man, they want to go after provincial championship. It really means a lot to them. They value it very, very highly. And then what comes after that comes after that.
Even though it's nearly an impossible task. I mean, I know you're not going to discuss that internally. When it comes up, you're not going to say, listen, forget about that. But it's fairly much an impossible task.
Yeah, but I think every county just has to work harder, and I've said this over the years. Every county has to build in a long-term plan to compete with Dublin. Dublin have brought the game to an unbelievable level, and I know Kerry have won championship this year, and they've brought it to it. Just the standards, the quality of play, the quality of the player is just increasing year on year. And I think what Dublin have done for the game, as a whole, and in Leinster, they've just raised the standard so much. And you can see counties now are they're putting in strategic structures to compete with Dublin in the long term, and I think that's only better for the game.
I know a lot of the talk in Westmeath now, Jack, is going to be around your potential successor. It's the same in my own county in Monaghan, but and look, the two lads you mentioned, John Kane and Desi Dolan, certainly will be among those names mentioned. Is this going to be an Alex Ferguson scenario where you get to give your blessing to your successor?
Oh yes, absolutely. Because there's a great bunch of lads, great bunch of players there. There's a lovely blend of experienced and younger players learning their trade. It doesn't happen overnight. The days are gone now where you bring in a young fella and you put them straight in. There's a development process that they must come through prior to stepping into that arena, and even when they're in that arena, there's a development process. So. Westmeath is going to be in very, very good hands. The boys down on the county board, they know exactly where the lads are at, where the team is at, and what stage they're at, and what's their next step, what's required. So I have full faith and full trust in the process and who's going to be appointed. I don't know who's going to be appointed. They'll have my full backing, but like I said, I'd hope to contribute to the future of Westmeath in some shape or form, so that we get more days in Croke Park.
It'd be good to have that consistency, wouldn't it, of the two lads known, sort of like building on the momentum. It seems like a really obvious choice, rather than, I know there's been plenty of names touted, but that continuity from a successful team feels to be somewhat important.
Yeah, there's a lot of things there with if you even take the group of players, there's, I guess, if you want to call it that, psychological safety of they know the lads, they know the routine, they know the standards, and so on and so forth. And it would be great to continue that on, and maybe with a couple of additions here or there. I don't know. So, that would be fantastic. And I think, as we alluded to earlier, the fact that the players were so buoyed by Westmeath people being involved in the setup, I think you can't ignore that. I think that's an important ingredient.
Yeah, well, listen, well done on 2022 and the years that preceded it, and best of luck with the new gig. Thanks a million for jumping on.
Thanks very much, lads. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Former Westmeath manager Jack Cooney on the line there. Philip Beattie has been in touch, said the Monaghan bus depot is one of the most depressing places in the country.
You're probably not wrong.
Is that fair enough?
You have to leave the bus depot and go into the town. But yeah, as bus stations go, it's right up there with the most grim. It's not the best picture of the town. It's a lovely town apart from that, Adrian, I have to say.
Really?
Yeah, gorgeous. Is it Johnny Ward was up recently and he was raving about it since.
Oh.
He really loved his time up there, and he didn't have quite have time to go for a pint with myself in the Squealing Pig or Terry's Bar, but it's a quality town. I might be slightly biased, and I'm not getting paid by the Monaghan Tourist Board to say this, but yeah, love a bit of Monaghan for me, Adrian.
For me, I love a minute. I mean, I think we reach peak Hannon right here. For me,
as towns go. Yeah, as
towns go. All right, OTB AM at 25:09 of this Friday morning is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's up coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. We've got the football kick-off live with Ger, Phil and David Myler today. That's from 11:30, and then 1 is Catherine Switzer on OTB Gold, Mount Rushmore, Monaghan at 3 o'clock today. The bus depot will not feature, I'm told. Owen Heary, Shelbourne legend, is in the hot seat for the Team 33 Legends interview today. OTB Gold with Ronnie Delaney, and you can tune in as well this afternoon for our first ever Happy Quiz. Happy Quiz, it's the Happy Quiz, is that official? Right. Not the crappy quiz anymore, it's called the Happy Quiz, I'm told. And regular Friday listeners are in for an additional treat with John Giles live on the line to discuss this week's Premier League action, I'm sure looking ahead to the weekend as well. You can follow Off the Ball across the social channels, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to download the OTB Sports app for the very latest in the best sports content and analysis. But we are not done there. We're back after these. Phil Egan himself live in studio for a very special Deadline Day recap edition of Deal or No Deal.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the Ball.
I don't think Springboks are in crisis because you would hate for a team that is so phenomenally good a year out from the World Cup to be world number one and then to go out in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, Stephen, we know.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
If your business relies on a van, that wouldn't sound good. But this does. Get up to 75% off van insurance. Now available in FBD branches nationwide. FBD Insurance. Support. It's what we do. 75% no claims discount based on 5 years claims free. Available on new van policies. Used for farm or business purposes. Terms and conditions apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong. Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's the last ever for now, Deal or No Deal, and I need to start with a plea. Phil Egan has admitted in the ads that he will take free tickets for Garth Brooks if they're going.
No.
Outed.
I didn't.
Come on now, Phil.
No, but the conversation went about, we were talking about how great Monaghan is, right? Because Shane had been talking about it, and then he was talking about the festival that was there.
The Blues Festival this weekend.
We were talking about the attire and would it be similar to what you'd see at a Garth Brooks concert. And then we'd obviously pinned Shane as definitely someone who would queue up for tickets for Garth Brooks.
Defamation.
And
Incorrect.
then the conversation went, would you go? I was like, if somebody gave me a couple of tickets, I would go.
We're both on the same page here, Phil. You'd take free tickets. That's what I'm saying. If anybody wants to get in touch, Phil.Egan at offtheball.com, hit him up. He's your man. When is he playing? Is it next week? When is it?
I don't even know.
Nobody knows.
Shane
knows. He's got both of his diary. Right. It's Deal or No Deal, just called Deal today, because this is only stuff that's happened. It's shut, thank God. Liverpool have got their man. Snap shut.
Slam shut last night at 11 o'clock.
Liverpool have temporarily got their man to get him a bit longer term down the line.
Yeah, actually, there is an option to buy, but I'd be very surprised if they do take that up because they'd have to pay nearly 40 million. But yeah, it's
Artur Melo.
Artur Melo. It kind of came out of nowhere yesterday, and this is the thing. People say, is it a good deal? But we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. How much game time is he going to get? What we do know is that there's a very good player in there somewhere who had performed well for Barcelona at times, went to Juventus, didn't have a great time. So now you're looking at Liverpool. They are short in midfield. They'll have a few players coming back soon enough, but I still think that they need to, that midfield needs a serious revamp. So
this is the thing though, Phil. You say they're short in midfield, and I know Klopp said that after the United game, but there seems to be rumours and talk within Liverpool that some people within the club maybe didn't feel that they needed a new signing in midfield. I know Thiago's obviously close to coming back maybe.
Yeah, but he's got an injury record where he picks up knocks. I mean, look at the Champions League final. You know, remember the rumours before the game that he wasn't going to play. He was a late withdrawal for the League Cup final. There's two finals where one that he doesn't make, one that he just about makes, and it's very hard to build with a player like that. When he plays, I think he's sensational, but when he's not there, then there's a drop off in quality, which we've seen so far this season.
Aubameyang is back in the Premier League. He's gone to Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel is one of those managers under a little bit of heat at the minute. Is this the man to save him, Phil?
Well, he is under a lot of heat because he spent the most in the Premier League transfer window, the most in history as well, and obviously
250 million quid.
Yeah, watching Chelsea the other night against Southampton, watching them against Leeds, what had made them so good, and obviously they won the Champions League under Tuchel, was they're so hard to beat, but they don't really play with any patterns in attack where you kind of know what they're about. They just have some really good players that will score you goals because they have quality, but Aubameyang is the player that maybe can put those chances away. Sterling has obviously chipped in with a few goals, but he is not what you would call a prolific goal scorer. And I don't mean, maybe prolific's the wrong word, because he has had seasons at City where he's been prolific, such as the position he got himself into. But put it this way, if he's going through one-on-one, do you think he's going to score all the time? No. Whereas, when I see someone like Harry Kane going through, I'm thinking just turn away. He's pretty much nailed on to score.
Is he risky though? I'm talking in terms of attitude here, yeah.
Yeah, well, Tuchel would be hoping he can tap into what worked with them at Dortmund, where he was prolific, and they do have other options in attack, but they haven't really had what you would call a top striker.
I heard the lads on BT making some similar point last night about have all the signings. Do you feel Chelsea are in a better position after spending 250 million quid? And you sort of have to say,
Well, see, Rudiger was a loss. Now they've brought in Fofana, and Koulibaly is obviously there as well. Koulibaly got sent off against Leeds, has had a few rocky moments, but he's only adapting to a new system, new league. Fofana, we know how good he is. You know, his career kind of was put on hold for a bit because of that serious injury, but you would imagine that will make them better at the back. Midfield will be a worry for them though, because they were played through quite easy against Leeds, same with Southampton, and you just wondered did Will Tuchel's speech after the game about not being tough enough, what kind of impact will that make over the next few weeks? But certainly is pressure on them anyway.
I'm skipping Everton and I'm going straight to the main man. Are Bednarek and Dendoncker going to save Stephen Gerrard's Aston Villa bacon?
I don't think they will. I've seen Villa a few times. I watched them against Everton this season, and it was the weekend, there was a heat wave. I watched the first half and I thought, the sun is shining out there, I need to get out there, because that first half was so dreadful. And then the other night against Arsenal, Arsenal are playing really well at the moment. Villa were awful. It's very hard to make a case for Gerrard being the kind of manager that players have run through a wall for after watching that game. But look, we know how things can change very quickly. I mentioned Arsenal, this time last season, everyone was thinking Arteta was gone. He turned them around, but I don't know if I have the same confidence in Gerrard being able to do that with Villa. Certainly doesn't have the same quality of players that Arteta had and has now.
And the last one we want to ask about is Billy Gilmore gone to Brighton. He hadn't been given a squad number at Chelsea, and I mean, for a player who I remember Pat Nevin all that long ago raving about him, and it looked like justifiably so from the performance he was putting in. He has totally slipped off the radar at Chelsea, and he's gone now to Brighton for 10 million quid. Why didn't it work out for him by way of will it work out for him at Brighton?
Because clubs like Chelsea, Lampard obviously gave him his run, and that was one thing Lampard did. Whether you think Lampard was good at Chelsea or not, he obviously was forced to play youngsters. Tammy Abraham was another, and Mason Mount as well, because they had the transfer ban at the time. And Gilmore was one of these players. You think back to the FA Cup tie against Liverpool, who was brilliant. Even think back to the Euros last summer for Scotland against England. He was excellent, and it's very hard to make it at a big club. I mean, because we've mentioned how much pressure Thomas Tuchel is under. He can't be waiting for Billy Gilmore to develop. He wants to finish article already. The great thing about Brighton and Graham Potter is he'll be given time, and kind of goes into the conversation about, is Graham Potter good enough to manage one of the big clubs in the Premier League? And the thing is, if he did, he wouldn't get the same time that he has at Brighton to kind of put a stamp on things, because at those top clubs they expect results instantly. Look what happened after a couple of defeats for Ten Hag. Like, there was actually people thinking it's done already. Yeah, there was. They've won their next 3 games. I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be a success, but the fine margins of the very elite level. Brighton obviously have been performing so well, but I think it is a good move for him, because they do play a nice brand of football as well. It's something we talk about when we're talking about transfers. Sometimes it baffles you that players go to a club where it's not going to suit the way they play. But with Brighton, you're encouraged to get on the ball. That suits Billy Gilmore. So hopefully it does work out for him, because there is a very talented player.
There is some lovely stuff across all the back pages today, which we'll never give you a full flavour of. It's Our Dream, Irish Daily Mail, The Sun, Ireland win 1-0 on Ag. The Ag thing, I'm not really aware of. There we go. I'm not really having that something to do with aggregate. It's like you're just shoehorning that in for no reason, so that's not happening. The Irish Times, lovely photograph, Katie McCabe there, and the Irish Independent as well. Some of the red tops, not with it as their main splash, which is a bit of a question mark. But Phil Egan, you were out there last night. I mean, nervy stuff.
Yeah, as expected though, because whatever about how Ireland performed, like Finland are a good team. I know people said they lost all their games at the Euros, but take into account that 2 of those games were against Germany and Spain. Would we beat Germany or Spain? I don't think so. So I know they got rid of their manager, and we beat them in Helsinki, but it was always going to be a close game. And I think what's really encouraging is we didn't play to the best of our ability, but we've become very hard to beat now under Vera Pauw. And that was even taking Niamh Fahey out of the team, and Megan Connolly went into the back 3 again, like she did in the game against Sweden away from home. But yeah, I would be encouraged by that, and it just takes a bit of pressure off for Tuesday. I think it was the approach last night was, don't lose, like like it's in your hands. Even if you didn't play well and you drew at Finland, you're still a point ahead going into the final round of games, and we have the easier fixture. I would fancy Sweden to beat Finland, but we don't have to worry about that now.
I know you were caught on, I think Ian Dempsey had up on his Instagram a lovely photo you're caught on TV at the game last night. Like, we were speaking earlier about the empty seats, and I know it's still a record attendance, but was the atmosphere good considering all the empty seats?
Yeah, like, it took a while to get going because Finland started quite well. I think that what can happen is those tickets went on sale a good while ago, but the tickets, some of them are €5 a pop. So people would think, it's only €5, I'll buy as many as I can. Yeah. And then it comes around to the game and they see it as, I'm only losing out on a £5. It was a lovely evening in Tala. Like, I arrived to the stadium in my t-shirt and people were looking, like, I met my sister and my nieces and they were like, why are you just wearing a t-shirt? Like,
yeah, but Phil, you'll be having the guns out in the middle of November. You'll be like right at home on the terraces at St James's Park with the t-shirt off, Phil Egan, giving it the big one. I then obviously had my hoodie, but I didn't have to zip it up. It was a lovely evening, perfect conditions. I actually had the seats were right down on the front row beside where all the Irish players are warming up. So I could see when Lily Ag got the seats, of course.
Lily Ag got the nod to say you're coming on. Right. And what an impact she made. But also as well, just after the game was brilliant. The scenes where the players walked around the pitch, they did their lap of honour after they'd been in the huddle, and Katie McCabe had some words with them, and they all got their their standing ovation from the crowd, and then all the kids. So, like, I've been going to these games for the last couple of years, and you kind of just seeing how it's growing. And now, like, you had all these kids around that area trying to get like pictures with the players, but then I saw one girl behind me with her mum in tears. I was like,
really?
What's happened? She had Katie McCabe's jersey. She was overwhelmed by the fact that she had got Katie McCabe's jersey.
That's lovely.
So, like, this group of players obviously are getting results on the pitch, but what they're doing off the pitch as well is it's great news for the women's game in Irish football, because it's just going to get bigger and bigger. It is getting bigger and bigger, but it's inspiring the next generation as well, where, like, I'm there pitch side, but all the people around, all the young girls that are around there, they know all these players. Like, the players are warming up. They're shouting at them, "Can I get your jersey after the game? I wouldn't mind your boots."
Getting in there early.
A lot of work to do yet, because we know how convoluted the playoff system is. But look, if you don't have a ticket for the raffle,
correct,
win the prize.
The good luck Auntie Katie sign at the end had me. I was in chief wobble at that point. I was ready for action.
To be honest, the bit with the kid crying with the jersey, I was kind of like,
that's gone.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Phil, go man, that's deal.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training, I was driving home. I was actually thinking, regretting it. What have I done? Like, I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
All right, it's 20 to 10, and you've been watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Thanks for tuning in and for all your comments over the course of the morning. OTB AM back on Monday morning from 7:30. Ger and Nathan are going to review the weekend's Premier League action alongside Gareth Roberts and Samuel Luckhurst. Alan Quinlan will join us to talk the Rugby Championship, and we'll have the Gillette Labs performance rankings as well. Who'll be in the green, who'll be in the red? We shall find out, and much more as well besides. And I'm sure a debrief from Electric Picnic, Shane.
Yeah, Minefield stage, I think we're doing a live crappy quiz.
The Here Now stage in Minefield.
So myself, yourself and Ger with Nathan, I think, involved as quizmaster, so that'll be fun.
There's still a lot of debate about what's actually going to... There seems to be a quiz of some variety, but exactly what format it's going to be, I'm sure it'll be really well... tightly, Nathan's producing, so it'll be really tightly locked down.
Absolutely, Anna. You'll trust it to be. It's my first time Electric Picnic.
There was a bit of a pause there.
I've never been. I'm going to wear the wellies, I think, because it's given the dodgy weather. I'm not staying over. I'm not drinking, so I'm going to be very
sure the wellies are on
about it.
It would be rarely do you wear shoes at all, Shane.
Well, I'm from Monaghan, so wellies are go-to.
We're going to leave you. Come on, Shane. Thanks a million. Fair play. Enjoyed that this morning. We're going to leave you at the rest of David Connolly from last night's football show on Off the Ball. Enjoy and have a great weekend. Good luck.
Yeah, this is the football show, and we are brought to you by Sky. Get all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. It's Mick and Ronan in the studio here, and we're delighted to be joined by former Ireland international David Connolly. David, how are you?
Good evening, lads. Very well, you?
Not too bad now, not too bad. It's a good night for Ireland tonight with the women's team qualifying for the playoffs of the World Cup. But yeah, I know you've been keeping an eye on everything in the transfer deadline day. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But you've also been watching Leicester and United. There's about 15 minutes, 10 minutes to go here. It looks like United are going to hang on. Leicester's, I suppose, early pressure in the second half has kind of eased somewhat. Have you been in any way impressed by United?
Look, I think that they're up against a Leicester side who, you can tell are in they're low in confidence. I mean, if you look at the goal, they're going to make a change now. It looks like Iheanacho's coming on, but even for the goal, they could have kind of played out a little bit, Leicester, but they just banged the ball long, caught out of position. Fair play. Rashford did really well, I think, to put it on a plate for Sancho, who finished well. But I think they're up against a Leicester side who are really low. They probably played them, at a good time. And, it looks like they've got the job done. They look pretty comfortable, to be honest, United.
We'll get back to United, but are you surprised with what you're seeing with Leicester this season? It's like you're saying they're very low. It's Tielman's gone off there and looks like he will stay with them, but obviously Fofana is off. It doesn't look like there's much coming in, and I see Brendan Rodgers in interviews and I feel like he's just kind of at the end of his tether a little bit. Like he's like, what can I do at this stage?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? The programme notes today, I saw the programme notes, and the chairman has been talking about the situation they find them in. Because to be honest, right, everyone is saying how great Brighton are at the minute, but Leicester were Brighton for a long time, right? You look at the players Brighton have sold, your Ben Whites, your Cucureas, your Bissoumas, and they keep going, and they're still doing well. Leicester were like that, right? They had to sell every crown jewel every year, and that was their model. And I don't think they've become a bad team overnight, but they look aging a little bit. They look like they need some fresh faces, but apparently the money's not there. They're so reliant on actually selling players before bringing any others in. So I'd just be mindful of not being too harsh on them, because, as I said, they were the model when everyone tried to copy them, and now Brighton are kind of doing brilliantly. But I think Leicester will come good again, but it's not going to happen this window, and it probably won't happen the next window. So they might be in for a difficult few months, because they do look low in confidence.
And I think Brendan Rodgers was making the point that almost accepting the reality that there's players on the pitch tonight that didn't expect to still be there. James Maddison, I think, had 3 bids turned down for a potential move to Newcastle. Jamie Vardy only signed his new contract very recently, and Yuri Tielemans is well documented, seems to be running down his contract and will be out of there this time next season. I just wonder, in terms of squad harmony, to have players like that who were not agitating for a move but looking likely to leave and are still there, now have to take the field and you're relying on them. It must be a strange dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, Fofana looked like he wanted to go, but, he's come out and he wasn't too happy with what Rodgers said. I mean, I was at Stamford Bridge at the weekend. I worked on the game, and a lot of the Leicester staff are the same staff that were there 20 years ago when I was there. And, you hear bits and pieces, and, I don't think they're that far away, but make no mistake, the likes of Kasper Schmeichel would have stayed, because I believe he kind of went for the same money on 3 years, but apparently Leicester couldn't give him that money, so they are in that situation where, they can't lose everyone. They can't lose Maddison and Tielemans, but they'll probably lose Tielemans next year. I think he's a top player. I'm surprised, Liverpool haven't bid for him. I'm surprised a club like that. I mean, I think his passing range is absolutely outstanding. Even at United, I think he could absolutely play for one of those clubs. But they can't lose everyone, but they're probably going to lose, they lost Fofana, they'll keep Maddison. They'll probably lose Tielemans, but they're going to need some extra, that's for sure.
Yeah. On United, David, then, as you said, they are playing Leicester, and we do have to kind of take that for what it is. But, after that Liverpool performance, which was weirdly, after only 2 games, a huge day in the era of Eric Ten Hag, to follow it up with 2 wins, even if both are scrappy, and again, they haven't won this match yet, but if they do hold on, 2 kind of scrappy wins, 2 mediocre performances. But if you contrast that to what we did see on the first 2 days of the season, which was a rabble, you also have an unchanged side tonight, which I found interesting when we saw it at 8 o'clock. Because, it might not be the team that we end up with at the end of the season, but it's Eric Ten Hag's first team at United. It seems to be what he settled on here. There are signs for United fans. You'd be very positive after these games.
Yeah, they are. Do you know what? I heard the odds, right, after the first week or two, and there was something like 5-1 to finish in the top 10. I mean, people should have been biting that bet off. Not that I'm condoning anything, but to finish in the top 10, I mean, that's a 20% return. That's a guaranteed. There's no way they were going to stay down there. 1, with the players they were going to add. 2, the squad they've got. And 3, once he's got time to work with them. What he did do against Southampton and started at Liverpool was he didn't risk playing out. He didn't risk the ball in terms of trying to play out from the back with the 2 centre-halves receiving inside the box. And so many times, if you can recall, when they'll be doing that last season, and it would just be a disaster. And I think he tried to play the beautiful game, but against Liverpool, he was like, no, we're not going to risk it in these areas. And they did scrap out. It looks like they've scrapped out now a couple of good victories, and there's there's time and a place to go and play, and they're probably getting to that place. They've got Arsenal next, which will be another challenge, another different, definitely a harder challenge, because Southampton, okay, at times they look good, but at other times I've seen them be really, really bad. And Leicester are in this sort of thingy. But make no mistake, Liverpool, they've got 9 really good points by the looks of it now. And then it's just the Arsenal one would be the next acid test, and how they approach that game. I'd play it basically exactly like the Liverpool one, not be risking the ball in dangerous areas and be trying to play in the opposition's half and play from there.
Yeah, like one notable omission from since that hard reset after the Brentford game is Harry Maguire, who hasn't featured against Liverpool, Southampton or against his old club Leicester tonight. And you cast your mind back to the dying embers of the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer reign, where Leicester destroyed Man United last year, and a rather unfit Harry Maguire was targeted almost against his old club. So you wonder, there was never any threat of him leaving in this transfer window or anything like that, but how does he screw his head on for the rest of the season, David, knowing that he's unlikely to feature in any of these first choice 11s?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult, you're right, because, I mean, Martinez, you see him forget his size, but his ball playing ability, and normally he'll be up against, there's a few giant centre forwards, but, when he's got the ball at his feet and he's bringing it out from the back, he gives him that balance playing as a left side centre back, which normally, Harry Maguire would be playing that one. And even Malacia alongside him has, I think, slotted in really, really well. Yeah. So he's made some big calls, in terms of that part of the pitch, because, Maguire and Luke Shaw would be the kind of favoured two for a while. So he's made big calls in terms of disrupting that. But he's got nice balance. There's real nice balance with those two on that left-hand side of the pitch. And I think it's going to be difficult for Harry Maguire, because I can't see him getting in anytime soon unless he changes formation and maybe plays a back three. But, I think they tried that and it didn't work. I'm not too sure that's going to work for United going forward as well.
Yeah, I saw somebody describe it as like ripping off a plaster, kind of taking, like once you made that decision, the decision stays made,
Yeah, exactly.
As United go close. So last thing on this then, Dave, before we talk about some of the transfers, one transfer that has obviously gone through today as expected is Anthony has confirmed that deal. So I'm just thinking there tonight, like maybe it's a bit early for Elanga in terms of like starting lineup, and he does kind of fit nicely in there, doesn't he, in that position with Sancho and Rashford. Suddenly that front three looks a little bit more vital, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess, look, what are we looking at? We're probably looking at highlights. Everyone looks at the same sort of bits and pieces from Anthony, and you don't want to draw comparisons, but when they signed Ronaldo, everyone thought he was a bit of a step-over merchant or a skill merchant, and then, doubted his end product. Well, Anthony looks like that from the clips, right? I mean, we just don't know how he's going to develop. He's only 22 or whatever. He's probably a little bit older than Ronaldo was when he first went to United. But nonetheless, it's got kind of reminds me of that, where they're signing someone who, looks really, really talented, very skillful, tries the audacious, looks really confident. And that's the sort of player they need. Someone who basically will have the balls to go and play at Old Trafford and not mind if he makes a mistake, and has got that confidence. So many players got to United, and Dan James springs to mind, and he says, I went to United as one player, and in the end I stopped being the player that got me there. Well, I don't think Anthony's going to be like that. He looks a really confident lad, believes in himself, very skillful, and like Ronaldo was, I think, first time around. So we'll have to wait and see, right? I mean, we just don't know. But I think not just ability, it's the personality and the character to play at United, because, it demands so much of you, not just your ability, but, receiving the ball when maybe things aren't going your way. And Anthony looks like he's got that confidence no matter what. Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on anything that happens over the last few minutes of this, and we'll let you know. As Ronaldo had a chance there a few minutes ago, I didn't even mean to. I kind of laughed, kind of inadvertently, as he kicked it out for a throw. He certainly just doesn't look like Cristiano Ronaldo at the moment. Fred is about to come on, shut up shop even more for United as we go towards the end of that game. David, if you don't mind, you might stay with us for a couple of minutes. We just have a quick break to take, and then we'll talk about some of the transfers from today. Yeah, 3 minutes left at the King Power. It's still Leicester 0, Manchester United 1. Earlier tonight, the Republic of Ireland qualified at least for qualified for a playoff for the World Cup with a 1-0 win over Finland in Tala. David Connolly is still with us here on the Football Show. We were talking about Manchester United and Leicester. We're done about that transfer deadline day, though, David, because it's always a busy day. Were you ever involved in transfer deadline day?
Yeah, I had a few moves on deadline day. So, it can be, sort of left to the last minute. I'm just reading here that maybe, You know, Depay was considered maybe going to Chelsea, but whether they've left that too late, you know, they've also got Aubameyang obviously from Barca, whether they're trying to get Memphis Depay as well. I think that'd be a great signing for them, but I think they might have left it too late. So, yes, it's a couple of moves late doors, but it can be exciting. I mean, they've certainly spent a lot of money, right, this window. I mean, I was looking, they reckon in Spain they've spent 55 million euros in this window in Spain, and I think the Premier League have spent 1.something billion euros. That's amazing.
It's really crazy how far it's gone. Just looking at through a couple of them, Arthur Melo to Liverpool looks like that's filling a gap that they needed. Aubameyang, as you mentioned, Zakaria also to Chelsea. Brighton bringing in Billy Gilmore, we were speaking about earlier on, is interesting. Forest, a load of players there, including Willy Bowie, Batshuayi. Villa brought in Dendoncker and look like they're going to bring in Bednarak as well. Akanji to City, Idris Gueye going back to Everton along with James Garner from Manchester United. Fulham with an interesting day as well. Willian probably headlining it from them. Southampton have brought in a couple. It's quite busy for deadline day. As a player though, David, like, you know, you do have a say in it. It's not like in the American sports, in the trade deadline where you just suddenly you wake up and you're been shipped off to Denver or whatever and you've no say in the matter. But you kind of, I'd imagine, the writing's on the wall, you kind of do. What is it like, kind of like 4 or 5 games into the season, you've done pre-season and suddenly you're shipped off, or it might work the other way as well, you're going off to a better situation?
Yeah, I think it can obviously work a few ways, because I guess by the end of last season as well, a lot of players would know where they might be in the manager's thoughts. If you're at a certain club and they bring in a lot of players, suddenly your position is compromised. We look the game we're watching tonight. You can see that contrasting two teams, right? United have got Ronaldo on the bench, Maguire on the bench. It looks like they're because of new signings. Leicester, they've probably got players playing, and the good players have kind of left the club now, and it's up to the others to pick up the baton. So I mean, some of the moves are interesting. I think the Liverpool one for Melo is one of them, because obviously the injuries they got at the back, and whether, the kind of position that say Arsenal have put themselves in, Man City, Tottenham have put themselves in, for Liverpool maybe to keep their powder dry and not go and maybe get some with all their injuries. You just think they might have had someone, like I would have thought someone like a Tielemans, or I don't know, even a Wijnaldum to bring back, or somebody like that. I'm surprised. But anyway, Melo looks like, I don't think he's played that much this season, but obviously played a little bit last season. But I think they certainly needed, someone through the door. And then the kind of polar opposite is Liverpool barely anyone, and then Forest with sort of 20 signings. It's quite incredible. But they've probably given themselves a real good chance of staying up, by actually going, not doing a Norwich and kind of, keeping the money in the bank and accepting that they'll give it a go, but probably go down. Forest are like, no, we're going to actually go try and stay in this league. And it puts those clubs like Leicester and Villa and Wolves, those clubs that have been up there, established for a number of seasons now. Everton puts them under real pressure.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Liverpool one in particular. Klopp has done this a few times during his Liverpool stint, whereby it seems like he's bent over a barrel and has to dip into the transfer window. You'll remember when they were decimated at the back and the fans were crying out for a signing at centre-back, and he ended up getting a couple of loans in, Ozan Kabak as well, like almost thinking I'm going to go for my main target in the summer, and ended up getting Kanate and Van Dijk came back, etc. And it's similar here. You get the impression there's a long-term target in mind, that they're getting Arthur in as a temporary measure with a view to maybe a Jude Bellingham next summer or a Declan Rice. But it's a bit tricky. Like Liverpool, I'm not saying they're not guaranteed top 4, but there's a lot of teams lurking around there. If they did have a dip in form, they're taking a little bit of a chance here, not reinforcing them a bit stronger.
Yeah, the only thing is they might look at even a Man City, right? You look at Man City's bench at the minute, and there's probably, there's 3 or 4 world-class players, and then after that, it's a pretty small. They got a lot of the youngsters on it, and that's probably as well. I think both managers like to have a fairly tight squad. One, you're balancing big egos, big money, big salaries, keeping players happy. You see Liverpool kind of with the mix of a lot of youngsters. Now those youngsters will be, easier to manage. Like Mikel Arteta, he might get rid of a few players, and you just wonder whether he can manage the big ego players, because he seems to prefer the younger players. Jurgen Klopp likes that mix. He does have a lot of the youngsters, but maybe, if you've got a couple of bigger players who might be on the bench, it might be a bit of an issue. So I think there is that balance that he doesn't want to, bring someone in if they're not going to be happy, if they're not, not starting. And also he's got the likes of Jota to come back in, right? He has got other players. But, yeah, you're right. It could be a Bellingham. It could be somebody like that. They're going to, sort of keep their money in their pocket until then. But by the summer, Man City might have, by sort of, I don't know, April, Man City might have run away with the league by then. I don't know.
And you mentioned the Nottingham Forest situation, which feels kind of unprecedented. The raft of players they've come in after those who would have seen them in the Championship, like Cooper, had built a nice tight-knit squad, and you got the impression they might go at what they had, but they've gone the opposite direction and trying to integrate this new group of players in with that existing playing staff. I just wonder, from your perspective, what is that like when you're introducing yourself to new players every day in training or every day in the dressing room? It's like, hi, I'm David, who are you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It must be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously there's another peg, someone has a new peg beside you, or someone who was beside you has been shifted into the sort of reserve dressing room and is no longer there. It gives you that sense, though, that the club might be going places.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
The Hurling Pod